You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.
Welcome to the 100th episode of Under the Shell, presented by Inside the Black and Gold. I'm Brennan Weissel.
Sam Jane, Hunted.
Michael House.
A podcast that started as an idea walking, I think, to a Terrapin Sports Central meeting between me and Sam has now turned into something I don't know how I could live without, honestly. We've done one of these every week of the semester since midway through our freshman year, and it's pretty impressive we put 100, but I think most impressive has probably been our consistency. So with that in mind, let's roll into our first two interviews. We have a spectacular episode here today, more than 10 interviews. Let's go to Ralph Friedgen and then Bruce Perry.
Before we get back to the show, a quick word from our sponsor. The Catalyst to the Game is brought to you by Catalyst Hot Dogs. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium dry-aged Black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings including hot onions, relish, and their signature chili sauce. And don't forget their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns because Catalyst has food for everyone. Find them in Sekou Stadium in Section 14 and the Xfinity Center in Section 210. Tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, now here's more Under the Shell. And our next guest on our 100th episode of Under the Shell was a Season 3 guest when we first joined Testudo Times. It is Coach Ralph Friedgen. Coach, thank you for coming on.
That's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So obviously the Maryland football season recently ended. Were you able to watch any of that? Kind of what were your thoughts on the season this year?
Well, I watch Maryland every week, along with I have a very large screen TV that I got it because I watched 4 games at one time, and being old and losing eyesight, I had to get bigger quadrants so I could see every game. And I'll usually have my computer or my laptop or my iPad working to get the 5th game. So I watch every game and I tape them and then I rewatch them. So yeah, I watched a lot of Maryland's football, and I talked. I conversed with Mike quite a bit.
Awesome. What did you see from the Terps this year? Obviously, from a fan perspective, it was pretty disappointing. Another 4-8 season, but there are signs of optimism going forward, especially with quarterback Malik Washington. They have Sidney Stewart, Zahir Mathis, and of course, edge rusher Zion Ely coming in next year. Kind of, what are your thoughts on the state of the program right now?
Well, anytime you have a very young football team, I think you can get away with 1 or 2 guys. But when you have multiple guys, like in 2009, I had 36 freshmen. Now, they weren't all true freshmen. There were some redshirt freshmen in there. And, when you watch the film, and I don't get to watch the film like I like to watch it, but, I couldn't fault our kids' effort. Mm-hmm. But there's a strength factor. There's a knowledge factor. As long as the kids were trying to do what I asked them to do, and we turned the ball over, we went from 2-10 to 9-4 in 1 year. And we jumped in the turnover ratio. I think we were like 128th in the country, the 2-9 year, to number 2 in the country, the 9-4 year. So that plays a huge part in it. But here's what I saw at Maryland. I knew going in, I talked to Mike, he had 103 players on the team. When I was coaching, we had to abide by Title IX, and we had 118. And we could survive with that. Now, when I went to TV, I went down to Florida State, and they had 4 deep on the roster, on their depth chart, game chart. And I asked Jimbo Fisher, how many guys you got on the team? And he said 120. Then right before the game, they came in and they gave me another 70 that they told me that they were practice squad guys. So he had about almost 200 guys on the team, and I was playing them with 118. Well, here's what happens. You get 10, 15 guys hurt, okay? Now all of a sudden you have trouble practicing. Mike had 103, okay? And I know he had a lot of injuries during the season. So where is he losing games? He's losing games in the second half. Now, it looked to me like they were tiring or they weren't in good shape or he couldn't practice them hard enough. I don't know the answers to all of that. Or maybe they were just young, but that was a factor in their season because when they won their first 4 games, they weren't probably hurting as much as they were later in the season. Now, the quarterback is a talented kid, but I watch him and where he throws the ball at times, it's probably a minute thing, but he'll throw the ball behind a guy. He won't throw in the location that's necessary for an experienced guy. That will come. He will get better, okay? But expecting that of a true freshman coming in, he's not going to be perfect, okay? He's got a strong arm. He's got a quick release. One of the things I think he could have done more is run more. I think when they, at Rutgers, when they put some zone option in, all of a sudden the running game got good because pretty much they didn't have a running game. They pretty much threw the ball every play. And I think that he could have, now why they did that, I don't know. I'm not coaching them, but there must have been reasons for that. I think this 105 scholarships, I don't know if I'm for that. When I went to Maryland, when I got there, they didn't allow you to have walk-ons that you could get in school. And if we had kids that had 1,000 on the boards and, were close to a 3.0, I could get them in. I was allowed 5 walk-ons a year. Now, you take 5 good walk-ons that most of them end up getting scholarships, but I had 6 of them end up in the NFL. So you take 5 a year for 4 years. Now now there's where your 120 kids come in. This rule, you don't have walk-ons. Walk-ons to me provided enthusiasm. Kids that they were willing to work for a goal, and they were very, very crucial to having a good football team. You don't have those anymore. And I think the other thing that hurt Mike in talking to him is he had to get rid of kids because of the rule. So what he did was, which I think was pretty admirable of him, he worked for them to get NILs with other teams. And all of a sudden, right at the end, they found out all these other teams were having problems with their getting rid of their kids, and they decided to let them have them for a year. So all of a sudden, he gets rid of his kids, and then they allow the other teams to keep them. So he's at a disadvantage right there. It's just that's not very good organization. The other thing I think hurt was when they put this 20.5 cap on NIL for football and both basketballs. Then all of a sudden at the last second they say, oh, the alumni can help because you had these other teams that had such a large bankroll for NILs. All of a sudden now that comes into play, so it's not even anymore, And that's got to get rectified. Otherwise, it's still going to be uneven all the way across. What's really kind of interesting, these coaches are getting new jobs right now. They're not talking about how much they're getting paid. They're talking about how much money you're going to give me to pay the kids, which tells you how important that is right now.
Continuing with talking about coaches, you just mentioned it, coaches leaving to go to somewhere else. A lot of that has happened during the season. Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss. Ole Miss is still playing in the college football playoff. What are your thoughts on the timeline of the way college football is set up now, which is forcing coaches to leave during the season, and just how ridiculous that is for the kids?
Well, it's not. It's ridiculous for the kids. You ought to see what it is for the coaches. The whole deal, the whole schedule, I don't know how they do it. I know why they've got 500 coaches now, because at the end of the year, you've actually moved the signing date from February up into December. You're practicing for bowl games. You got the junior college eligibility coming up. You got the transfer eligibility coming up. You got the signing date coming up. How do you do all of that? Then the other one that gets me is then you got spring practice, and then the kids they can leave after spring practice, So you don't even know who the hell's on your roster. I mean, so you got to go out and now start recruiting all over again. I mean, it is utter chaos. You know, I tell you what, the coaches deserve the money because they're working 5 times harder than you ever. I don't know how the time they coach football because they're dealing with all this other stuff. You know, I don't know how you have a relationship with a kid. When do you ever get time to visit with the kids? You know, I mean, we're way, way away from what college football was meant to be as part of an education. You know, it really is. I mean, I stay in touch with. I can't tell you. I get at least 3 or 4 phone calls or texts every week from guys that I've coached as way back is the early 70s and late 60s. That's how much having a relationship with players are. You know, it's. I got operated on 10 days ago. I think I had 50 emails or texts, you know, just from former players. You just wishing me well. So, obviously, you know, you even though at the time they may not appreciate it, as time goes on, might get better. It's kind of like my marriage, I guess. But you know, although that might get worse because I'm around more, you know. So I've been married 52 years, and people say, "How you do it?" I said, "Well, it's only really 20. I've been coaching 43 of those years, so I'm never there." So.
Well, congrats on the marriage, first of all, Coach. And like you say, it is so weird to see how this landscape of not just college football, but college athletics as a whole has changed this decade into 2020s. To wrap up this interview now, we've got 10 trivia questions from your time as Terps head coach. So let's see how you do here. All right.
If you got to ask me names, I forget names really. My wife would need to be here for that. She remembers everybody's name. But
all right. So in 2003, the Terps scored 39 points in the second quarter against what conference opponent? And it's a record that still holds today for Maryland football.
What conference opponent? Oh, it's a conference. Okay. I was going to say West Virginia, but no. Conference opponent. Wake Forest?
You were joking about them the other day with me on the phone.
I talked to so many people on the phone. 39 points. Duke?
It was
North Carolina.
Yep, North Carolina. Yep.
Yeah, we scored. I thought, John Bunning was a really good coach. In fact, I think we scored 59 points 2 years in a row against them, and he played the Peach Bowl before I did, and I always called the winningest coach of the bowl game we went to, and he couldn't believe I was calling him, but he gave me some really valuable tips. One of them was on game day because it was played New Year's Eve. I took the whole team to Martin Luther King, the church and the village and everything, and it was a really eye-opening experience. I had videos of lynchings and whatnot, but I mean, the parents went and the kids actually got really upset on it, and I thought it was pretty educational for them. But I think it helped us win the football game too. So,
yeah. In terms of, we talked about this season, obviously Malik Washington threw the ball a ton. Came one pass away from breaking Maryland's single-game passing attempts record of 62 this year when he played Michigan State. You were more of a run-first type of coach, and during your time,
no, that's not true.
In terms of like not throwing it 62 times a game, I meant more.
Look at my record, especially in the first 3 years. We were over 200 yards rushing a game and over 200 yards passing. I'll tell you a story, okay? When I went from the San Diego Chargers to Georgia Tech, George O'Leary, the last thing he said to me was, "We're going to be 60-40." I said, "What do you mean 60-40?" He said 60% run, 40% pass. I said, "You need to get somebody else. That's not me." He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to take what they give me. If they put too many men in the box, we're throwing the ball. If they put, they're going to play double the wideouts, we're going to run the ball. And I'm going to let the quarterback make the decision on what we're doing." He goes, "Okay." And my whole 4 years at Georgia Tech, We were over 200 yards rushing, over 200 yards passing. So I didn't pick we're going to do this first, but I felt we had to do both equally well.
It's almost like you came up with the RPO. I love it.
I wish I had known about the RPO. I didn't know about that until I went to Rutgers.
So yeah, you said, you guys had some good quarterbacks. At Maryland, you only had one quarterback that came in the top 10 of like the highest passing attempts in a single game. That came in 2008. Who was your quarterback for that game?
2008. And that had to be Turner.
Yep, good one. It would have been.
Do you know how many times he threw it?
I would say I'd be shocked if he threw it over 60, but that must be the reason he picked him. But what game was that?
He played against number 8 Boston College. You guys won 42-35. He threw for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. Pretty good game for Chris Turner.
7 attempts.
They were what, ranked 8th in the country?
Yeah, 8th.
What did I beat? I think 10 top 10 teams. I believe that's what I won. I know I won a bunch of games in the top 25, but that's why I had Boot Hill, and they made me. They took it down, but every time it was a little hill as you walked on our practice field, and I wanted to instill in all of our kids that we could beat top 10 teams. So anytime we beat a top 10 team, I put a tombstone up. And they had to walk by it every day, and it had the date, and it had the game and the year. And, they told me they were going to put them back up, but they never did.
All right, next question for you here. 2 players during your tenure had 5 100-plus yard games in a season. It is tied for the 4th most in Maryland history. This is for rushing yards. 2 players, one was in 2008 and one was in 2001.
2001 was Bruce Perry.
Yep.
Okay. 2008 might have been Darrell Scott.
There you go.
Bingo. Nicely done.
That
Go ahead,
up against what I said in the other one, about having balance,
Yeah. Well, in that same season with Darrell in 2008, a player recorded a 76-yard run for you guys, which was tied for the longest non-scoring run in Maryland history. Do you remember who that was?
Non-scoring run in 2008?
2008. It was a 76-yard run.
And it wasn't Darrell?
It wasn't Darrell.
David Meggett?
It wasn't a running back. I'll give you that.
Oh, it wasn't a running back.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Hayward Bay.
Yep.
There you go.
Look, I remember these names.
This is unbelievable. I can't lie.
Yeah. So during your tenure, you once played in the same venue that Maryland men's basketball played in that exact same year. This was in 2002. Do you remember what that would have been?
The same venue?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That the men's hoops team played in.
At the same time?
No, I think it was like just in the same year.
2002. Trying to think what venue the basketball team would have played in.
Think about bowl games here. Where did you play your bowl?
Oh, it'd have to be the Peach Bowl then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember what stadium that was?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't the new one. It was the old stadium. I forget what they called it.
Yep.
The Dome.
Yep.
Yeah, the Georgia Dome.
Georgia Dome. Right.
So that's where the Final Four was that year.
Okay, I didn't know that. That was a great time for Maryland athletics, and I remember Dr. Yao used to have me negotiate the bowl games, and we had lost to Virginia that year, and they were battling for the Peach Bowl, and I had to negotiate with Gary Stoken, who was the head of the bowl, who's also a friend of mine, but he said to me, "Can you guarantee that we'll bring 17,000 fans?" What am I going to say? No. I said, "Yeah, well, I guarantee you we'll bring 17,000 fans." And when we went into that place, I was expecting to see it all orange because we were playing Tennessee, and Dr. Yao at the luncheon said that they're only going to play Rocky Top one time, and that would be at the beginning of the game. I said, "Gee, thanks," you know. But it turned out they only played it once because we beat them. I think it's 31-3 or something like that, you know.
Yep.
And Maryland fans showed up. It was pretty amazing night.
All right. Last question here. When you left Maryland, you joked with a radio host that you burned your Maryland diploma. Do you remember which radio host that was?
Glenn
Clark. Yep.
Glenn Clark. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I had just come out from fishing. I was sitting on I call it my margarita dock, my deck, overlooking the water with my brother-in-law. And he was asking me about Maryland, and I said, sitting out there looking at my dock, and I said, I burned my diplomas, and I'm burning a Georgia Tech flag. And, of course, Georgia Tech jumped on that big time. They put it on the internet with me screaming at somebody and burning up a diploma, and in the background was I was burning my diploma. In the background was a Georgia Tech flag off of my dock. Yeah, they don't miss a thing, those people. Well, I did better than I thought I would do, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah. I think you hit on every single one that we asked. I'm pretty sure.
With a couple of hints.
Just a couple hints.
You were talking about Hayward Bay. I remember he had maybe the longest touchdown. I remember because I was calling the plays at that time. Against Miami, we hit him on a 99-yard touchdown pass. I saw the matchup we had at corner and went for it, and he hit it. And then he had a big reverse against Boston College in that game. That was a kind of an interesting game because the 2008 team, that was the year we should have been better than what we were. We were 8-5, and I think we beat 4 top 10 teams or 3 top 10 teams, and we should have been better. We should have been better. And then because I was a senior team, and they all graduated, and then I had all the freshmen come in the next year, and if we had played as hard most of the games as those guys did, we would have maybe won the conference. So.
Since you brought up Darius's 96-yard touchdown in 2010, I believe. No, 2006. That was in 2006.
Right.
Against Miami. Do you remember who the quarterback was who tossed that?
I think it was Turner again.
Mm-mm.
No?
Nope.
Who was it?
Sam Hollenbach.
Oh, yeah, Sam. Yeah. Yeah, Sam played really well for us, and he had a big game against Virginia that year too. And Sam's doing well,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Coach. We really appreciate your time. This is awesome. Great job on the trivia. You killed it. And we'll be sure to stay in touch with you and make sure you get to keep talking about, because obviously I think for an old ball coach, you got some great perspective on the NIL and current era of college football. So always a great guest. We appreciate you, Ralph Friedgen. Thanks for hopping on.
Okay, good to be here, man. Thank you.
All right, happy to have on Bruce Perry. Bruce came on the show last year, and we talked with him about kind of where he stood on the coaching situation at Maryland. Obviously, played under Coach Loxley. Big supporter of Coach Lox. So I guess I just wanted to ask you, as a program supporter, there's a lot of talk about resources and stuff like that. Going into a season like now next year, what do you kind of interpret as being the biggest thing that needs to change in order for this program to get back on track?
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We're in a NIL age, an era where, in order to be successful, money's involved, right? And from my knowledge and my understanding, Mike has been doing the best he can with what he has. He's been scraping the cupboard on obviously trying to retain talent but also trying to acquire talent. And in the Big Ten and in today's college football, if you're not able to do so, you're not going to win. So I think the expectations now with the new AD have changed, um, and the resources now are going to be allocated so that we can attain success and get back to where we know we can be.
How do you, from when you played college football to now, how like stark is it for you to watch the game and just see not only the kids making more money, but also these coaches are pulling, I mean, Lane Kiffin pulling in an insane contract. You see this coaching cycle, they're just getting gobs and gobs of guaranteed money. It's definitely changed from when you played. How much do you notice it and how different is it for you?
Listen, we played for a scholarship. We played for the love of our teammates. We played for the love of our institution, and things are way different now. But I also think that it kind of, I don't want to say damages, but it kind of deflates the game and the institution of football in itself. With one that's supposed to be um, a staple in camaraderie, a staple in brotherhood. Well, now, how are you able to create that camaraderie and that brotherhood? How are you able to be able to institute a program in a culture where every year your players change? It's free agency every year come December. You know, um, I think that has changed, but it also has elevated the type of football that we see on Saturdays, right? So now teams are stacking, talent. You know, Gone are the days where Alabama has, you know, three deep 5 stars. Now the 5 stars that can't play, they want to leave and where they can go and perform. I think that there's a value in waiting your turn. I think waiting your turn sometimes creates a even bigger monster than when you first step foot on campus. So those are the things the differences that I see in my era. Obviously, I wish I could have got paid, um, but and most of the guys with me wish that were the case. But listen, this is the era that we're in, and until there are some regulations in place that changes things, like this is where we are.
How would you describe from kind of the tenor of former players that you've talked to that have played under or didn't play under locks? What is kind of the mood of those players right now, alumni? Do you guys feel like you're being welcomed back? Do you feel like it's a program you want to go back to? Like, where's kind of the vibe with former players, would you describe it as?
We're always welcome back. That's never been the issue in the 8 years that Mike has been at the helm. Um, at the end of the day, we want the best for our program. That's what it boils down to. Um, we do honestly feel that Mike has not been given what he needs um, to be as successful as he can be. And like I said before, I'm glad that we got a vote of confidence from the athletic director that those resources are going to be allocated. Um, and now we just have to wait and see. I know we've been seeing a good recruiting class come through over the last couple days and since signing day, and hopefully this materializes into W's.
Yeah, I guess my last question is just yes, there are going to be, they say there will be more resources, but obviously this is a huge season in terms of wins and losses for locks. Do you think that there's like a chance to really turn it around this much in one season with the more resources, or do you think there's going to still need to be more time devoted for him? Because it feels like just understanding the fans' tenor and where it's at and reading kind of between the lines, it feels like this season upcoming is a huge one in terms of what their record is. So how do you think they can turn that money into short-term kind of wins and loss
Well,
progress?
well, let's look at history. Let's look at what Indiana did. Indiana, allocated $25 million in resources, and what do they have now? They have the number 2 team in the country. It can be done, right? As long as those promises are fulfilled and those resources are obtained. Like I said, you have to pay to play now. This is where we're at. hopefully that's what we see at Maryland.
Well, thank you, Bruce. Those were two of Maryland's former football player and coach, actually worked together. But that wasn't just the only interview we had, guys. We brought on a ton of different people. Really excellent episode. Brendan putting it all together. This has been an awesome, awesome time. I feel like I'm going to say an emotional message every 5 seconds, but it's been an emotional 4 years with you guys. I've loved every part of it. Let's take it back to some of our favorite guests here in the show and take it away.
Our next guest is the head football coach of Archbishop Spalding High School. He just came away with another MIAA title this year, who also just won the previous 3 years with Malik Washington. He's here to talk about Washington's freshman year at Maryland. We're so happy to have on Coach Kyle Schmitt. Coach, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Michael, and congrats on 100 shows, man.
Thank you. So tell me about Malik's freshman year. How often were you able to watch, and kind of what did you see from your former quarterback with the Terps now?
Yeah, we all know the record and some of the challenges that existed. I watched him as much as possible, if anything, even taped games. We're always out and about on Saturdays. We played a few Saturdays of an eighth grader, and so we were at a lot of youth football games and recruiting ourselves, but I ultimately got to watch him a bunch, and I was at the Michigan game. And, I think for Malik, the term that I kind of think about is reps kind of remove doubt. And that's where he just, as a young quarterback, has to play, and you have to play and play and play. And there were glimpses, I would say, against Wisconsin. I think there were glimpses. He pulls the ball against Rutgers to show his athleticism. I think there were definitely glimpses against Michigan State, that showed that, he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the country and a future pro. But there just wasn't a level of consistency that maybe we were used to with Malik at Spalding. Malik didn't even play as a freshman at Spalding. He was a backup quarterback there, and to put a 19-year-old in that spot and at times to struggle to run the football and have to throw like they did at Michigan State. And that's no criticism of the staff. I mean, the coaching staff does what they need to do every game to try to win. And that's the best plan that they felt they needed to put together. And so no critique there, but that's probably not the formula that you want with a freshman quarterback. So I think there were some struggles there at times for Malik, but man, more importantly, I spoke to him after the Michigan game. I spoke to him the week of Michigan State, and then we just actually talked about 4 or 5 days ago at the Spalding basketball game he was at on Friday night, and spent some time together. And Malik's in good spirits, and as you would expect, just the competitor's edge. He's ready to get back to work.
I think you've described him to me before as like the ultimate competitor, someone who hates to lose, will do whatever it takes to win. So how do you think he's feeling after a 4-8 season?
Yeah, especially the 4-8, that 4 wins and then 8 in a row. Not good. Yeah, it was challenging. He's also not a person that wears his emotions on his sleeve outside of the field. But I think there was, like any young player, there's some, there's some imposter syndrome in all of us when we're at that level of like, man, am I what everyone thinks I am? I don't think Malik struggled much with that. I think the confidence is still there. I think there's more of a determination to like figure this out, whether it's obviously we a solid recruiting class, but I think more importantly, probably portal additions that he can surround himself with. And then obviously the retention of current players that have had really good seasons, and they need to continue to add on to that offense. So I think for Malik, the competitor portion of him is ready to take on the offseason and kind of move forward with making this the best product that they can be.
Hey, Kyle.
What's
how
up,
you doing,
Sam?
man? Good to see
Good,
you.
man. I saw your name in the Athletic the other day, man. I was reading an article, and it was
Thank you.
so good for you. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey,
yeah, definitely.
congrats on a good season.
Thank you.
I've been following up with Mike Spalding coverage when he gets there. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask how you guys and kind of your program resembles in a way what Malik's going to have to go through now in college, but obviously at a much higher level because his first year, I know he didn't like fully, play a ton, but even before he got there, there had been some struggles, and for him to kind of experience losing like this, obviously a crazy turnaround. I don't think anybody who's realistic expects Maryland to win a national championship next year or a Big Ten title,
Mhm.
but just how do you think he's suited to kind of in somewhat of a must-win season for Loxley, really not be phased by the pressure and lead a type of turnaround like this? Like, what specifically about him do you think he's got a chance to, even after a really bad first year record-wise, kind of turn this thing around?
Yeah, I think we're all yearning for like this secret, and I think what Malik brings is sort of this relentless consistency. Um, that it's the same person day after day after day after day, and like that's the secret. And I think when you watch, and like you said, are they going to be Indiana? You know, I agree. Is that might be a bit of a high bar, um, but can you just get this relentless consistency? And it is relentless consistency. We have a saying at Spalding: we are better than anybody else at doing the same thing over and over again and not getting bored. And I think what a guy like Malik can do is he has this full off season and he's going to add new pieces and he's got to get those guys on board to do the same thing. It just can't be Malik Washington. It can't be Malik's the same person every day, but then there's, chaos at the receivers and chaos at the back. And I'm saying that exists now, but they can't be that. Because the quarterback's really consistent, everything's going to work real well. So I think the idea of him kind of growing, and I do believe, and I know Coach Loxley spoke about this throughout the year. I do believe the missing days of camp, while it didn't show up in the first four, it matters. There's 2 minutes during that time, which I think were so critical in mid-October. I mean, the amount of 2-minute drills you do in mid-August trumps like the entire year. I mean, you probably get multiple groups of those. So I think hopefully his health is there, and he's able to have a spring ball where he's no longer learning. He's now in a way teaching guys the system, and I think that was kind of Malik's best quality at Spalding was he took just total control, and he began to change routes, check plays, and I'd hope with another year in the system that like he begins to take this ownership of it, and then while you can watch all of his high school tape and you can work with him through spring ball, at some point there's got to come like on a Thursday, Friday where Coach Locks and Coach Hamilton walk in and say, man, what do you love? Like, what do you love on 3rd and 8? What do you love in short yardage? What do you love in the red zone? I wasn't in those meetings. I don't know if that happened or not, but I would think that's something we got to with Malik, where's your comfort level with this play and this play and this play? What do you not like? Like, if you don't like something, let's get rid of it. Like, if you don't believe in it, then what's no use of me calling it? So I just think we all want this to happen overnight. We all put a lot of hopes on Malik's shoulders. Just the reality is it just doesn't work that way. And I know that's not college sports at the moment, but that's the goal, is to get there quickly. But it just takes time. And I said, Sam and Michael started, like, reps were moved out, and this is just a repetition sport. And I think every rep Malik gets with the offense, it's only gonna make him and the whole group better.
I think you mentioned that a lot of the losses this year for Maryland came in the second half, came late in games. Do you think there's something to it where Malik just wasn't in those positions his senior year of high school. I mean, the closest game that you guys were in that year was against Hope, and I think you guys won by like 14. Do you think there's something to it where he just wasn't in a lot of those positions?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. You see it even with Ohio State on Saturday. You know, Julian saying he's a year older, but he's played in a bunch of games where, you know, it's been blowouts. He's sitting on the bench in the fourth quarter, and then suddenly he's got to make a bunch of plays in the second half against Indiana, and it goes young quarterback throughout the country. So yeah, I mean, it's just what do you harken back to? It's a little bit different having to drive a team on a Saturday in October versus Washington. You know, that's a little different than a Friday, you know, an afternoon at Gilman. And that's nothing against Gilman, but there's just a reality to the situation. And those games weren't always that close either. So, yeah, I do. I think he just wasn't in that spot a lot. And then again, he didn't have that time in August where he gets to lead that. You can watch, you can do reps on air. Man, at some point when the bullets are flying and there's hungry D linemen trying to hit you, you got to live it. I mean, you just have to live it. You have to experience. You know, some things must be experienced to be learned, and so no, I absolutely. We tried to put him in. I got yelled at from the other sideline at times when I treated a 2-minute drive at the end of the half when we were up like 28-0 or 35-0, like it was the fourth quarter of the championship game. It doesn't bother me, but I knew we had to simulate those reps any way possible. And it's just experience. There's a reason the NFL is telling players to stay in school for an extra year, is because the position, you get better with age. It's just the reality of the position. It takes reps to get there. Guys can hit and they can show up for a few days, for a few games, but eventually, like, you have to experience it. And some of that is failure. I think I said last time I was on the podcast with you guys over a year ago, like, he has to fail a little bit. Like, Malik had to fail in camp. He had to fail in spring ball. Well, he failed for 8 weeks in a row this year. So hopefully learned a lot from it. I think he will.
Subtle flex there, Coach. I see you. Those games weren't always close.
There were some. McDonough this year was very close in the championship game. They did a wonderful job.
Man. Get it off your chest. I love it. To wrap up, I think you talked about the transfer portal. Has Malik told you anything about? I mean, the receiving room's going to need to be revamped. They're going to need to bring in some new pieces along the defensive side. Has he told you if he's going to be playing recruiting role like how he was with the freshman class this last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's in his DNA, and I won't give up details, but I know that the world that exists now is so different, and these kids are connecting. I call them kids. They're men at this point who are making a lot of money. So these men are connecting on social media. They have each other's numbers. They know each other from all-star games. Yeah, I think that's happening for sure. Malik is a natural kind of recruiter. Miles McAfee, our junior receiver, Malik introduced me to him when he was in 8th grade, and we connected. So he is a connector. I think that's one of his best qualities. Yeah, I think he's working extremely hard. He feels really strongly about that, and obviously the staff is doing a ton of work. But I don't think a sophomore quarterback who has built a foundation here, wants to stay here. I don't think that's a bad place to be for a receiver or offensive skill player or a lineman. Frankly, you know, we all forget about those guys. I mean, they want to protect for studs too. I mean, they're not, you know, that matters to them. And you know, frankly, his best quality for us, especially late in his career, was his connection with the whole football team, whether it was the specialist, the defensive players, the defensive staff. You know, these guys are, it's really it's sports position. It's sports version of the CEO, the player CEO anymore. I mean, these guys are, you know, they have to recruit the people around them. The great ones will. And so I think he's really hard at work at that as we speak.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Coach. We appreciate your time. Bringing back on Kyle Schmitt. Gets to come on to Under the Shell again. We get to have him on again. So thanks for hopping on, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you guys. Congrats to you guys,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Keep up the good work.
We just broke down football. There's been a little bit of football news in the last couple of weeks that we haven't covered. Break down very quickly National Signing Day, how the Terps are looking for their upcoming class.
Right, so it was a little bit of a smaller class than compared to previous years. The Terps only signed 16 players on National Signing Day. Part of that, you got to remember the Terps just had a young roster this past season, so they can't be bringing in another large freshman class. You got to think of kind of the two classes together in a way. Obviously, the big name that everybody is watching and waiting to watch at Sekou Stadium is Zion Ely, the 5-star edge rusher from Maryland, from Baltimore. Just won the overtime national championship last night for St. Francis Academy. So huge for Loxley to keep Zion. There was some talk that South Carolina was trying to flip him. Auburn was trying to flip him. Texas was trying to flip him. In the end, he stays with Maryland, so a win for Loxley. That being said, though, he still has to keep the talent on his roster. You already have two talented edge rushers from this past year's freshman class with Zaire Mathis and Sidney Stewart. Roster construction-wise, having three premier edge rushers on the same team, I'm not sure how all of them can be playing on the same field as once.
There's only two edges from what I understand.
Yeah.
Do you think Zahir could kick inside? It seems like they're both like stand-up edge guys. Like, it doesn't feel like any of the three of them could like play any other position really.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, we saw a couple years ago where Loxley had Jayshon Barham be a linebacker. Maybe that's in play for one of those
Yeah,
guys.
but that was a terrible move. He went to Michigan, started stand-up edge rushing, and that shot his draft stock up because everyone knew that he was a better pass
Right.
rusher. Like, Zion Ely is not coming to Maryland to play middle linebacker. I can tell you that. And Sidney Stewart isn't coming off a freshman All-American campaign and is going to be like, yeah, let me move positions. And I don't think Zaire Mathis probably wants to do that either. Like, you have to bring in talent. And ultimately, like, no one is going to say that Maryland shouldn't have brought in Zion Ely at all. But I do wonder what the implications could be, / like just curious how their rotation's going to look next year.
I mean, it definitely adds to depth. I mean, one guy gets tired, you can quickly just be alternating, running these guys in and out. So I think that'll help in a sense, especially we saw it late in the season. These second half of games were not favorable for Maryland. Guys got tired. It just looked like they were a little bit sluggish on some plays, taking plays off. So I do think having three of them will help. But like you said, how is this actually going to look? What is the rotations looking like?
It's funny. It's literally the one position you were like, I wish Zion Ely just was a 5-star wide receiver because that would be an incredible fill. But nonetheless, you bring talent into the building. Other big news from talent, Maryland got one of the best long snappers in the country, which is huge news. And with how much they could be punting, pretty important. Pretty important. You'd rather have a 5-star long snapper than a no-star long snapper, but I don't,
I mean, stars for special teams, though, are like very like.
I mean, who's giving these out?
Yeah.
But
also,
hey, better than nothing.
I will say I like some of their additions. I think they did an okay job with the class, but Mike made a good point earlier. Like, you're not going to be able to sign like a 23-man recruiting class when you just were one of the youngest teams in the Big Ten. Like. And I don't think that Loxley was probably aiming to do that because he knows this year is a must-win year, and he's going to want to use his scholarships on transfer portal guys. So no portal news yet. We'll be breaking that down. But let's move off of football.
Our next guest on our 100th episode of Under the Shell was a season 3 guest with us. He recently also just celebrated a milestone, calling his 1,500th game at the University of Maryland. We are so pleased to have on Johnny Holliday. Johnny, thanks for joining us tonight.
100 episodes, huh?
Yes, 100.
Wow. So
Yes.
you fooled the audience 100 times. I fooled them 1,500 times. It's amazing what we can do, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've only been doing this podcast for about 4 years now, so we've got a long way to go to match your milestone, I'll say that.
I was thinking about 1,500 compared to what I did for the Nationals, 4,257 shows in 13 years. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
1,500 games is a ton to stay loyal to one place. What about Maryland made you want to call games over all these years?
Well, when I was at WMAL, I had done Navy football 1 year, and then I did GW basketball the next year. And when I went to WMAL, they were carrying the Maryland games. And so Tim Brandt had been doing the games. He went to Channel 7. And since I had done stuff in California, the general manager said, "How'd you like to do the Maryland games?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Not realizing it's going to be 47 years. So when I started with Maryland, I worked for WMAL, not for the school. And then for some reason, they couldn't come to an agreement about renewing the rights for another year. And WMAL and Maryland parted ways, and they picked up Navy. And they had me penciled in to do the Navy games. So Andy Geiger was the Maryland athletic director and called me and said, "What's it going to take to keep you here with us?" I said, "Well, I can't stay at WMAL if they're carrying Navy games and I'm supposed to be doing them. I'm going to have to leave the station." And I was with ABC Sports at the same time. And I said, "So that's my situation." He said, "Okay, we'll put together a package. You keep your ABC job, which I did for 28 years, and you do all of our football and all of our basketball games." And that's how it happened.
Johnny, I gotta ask. Obviously, you were born and raised in Miami. You moved to DC in 1969, but over time, everybody, when you talk about the University of Maryland, people bring up Maryland pride. What does Maryland pride mean to you now, with all these years covering Maryland games and being around the university?
You know, I think Maryland pride to me is stick with them, win or lose. Everybody wants to see a team win. It's not going to happen all the time. It's happened less frequently here in Maryland this year in football, and certainly, hopefully, that'll change around next year. But I think if you got Maryland pride, you're with these guys, with these women, whether they're winning or whether they're losing, whether they're struggling, whether they're rolling through winning streaks, instead of jumping off the bandwagon like people do in a second, as you guys well know. And mostly it's people that have no idea what goes on inside the football program, the basketball program, the baseball, the soccer, whatever. These are all people sitting back at a computer and can type anything they want to type and make themselves look like they're brilliant. And they're not brilliant. You stick with the team. I think they need you more when they're struggling than they probably do when they're having success. So that differentiates for me from just a regular fan and a fan of a school that'll stick with these guys and be behind them all the time and give them the support that they need. And they need support. When you're not winning, that's the toughest time that you face. You know, trying to stay up, trying to be upbeat, trying to know that it's going to be okay. You're going to win eventually. And it's pretty tough. But I think any athlete blocks out the social media. Most coaches block it out. They don't even read that stuff. But I do, and I'm sure you guys do. And it can be pretty critical from time to time.
Being with Maryland, I think you said 47 years. Are
Yeah.
there some times you think in your career, like if you hadn't worked at Maryland for all that time, is there any other school or other universities you think I could have done that at? Any other schools you look at and say, you know what, I could have spent 47 years there, or is it really just Maryland?
That's a good question. I think probably the last game I did before I came to Washington, 1969, was Stanford Cal football game. They call it the big game out there in California. I could have probably stuck with Stanford or Cal doing their games. I liked it so much, and I lived out there for 5 years, but nothing like here. Uh, but I don't think anything can replace the memories that I have, the coaches I worked with, the players I broadcast for, the athletic directors I've worked for. There's been a lot of them, and it's been a real terrific ride, to be honest with you. I've enjoyed every single minute, probably more today than I have in any year that I've done the games, because you've done them for so long. Uh, Nothing is going to surprise you because you've been in every single situation. And I think the old adage about, you guys will find out, the longer you're around, the more you do this podcast, the better it's going to get. Every time you do it, it's going to be better than the last one you did. And I'm still learning. I'm still critiquing myself, and trying to do the best job that I can. You're not going to please everybody, but if I can please the majority, that's the name of the game.
Johnny, I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot, but I want to know what your favorite game that you've called for Maryland is, but not like, winning the national title, not like the bowl games under Friedgen. What is like a niche game that really still sticks out to you?
I always say anytime we beat Duke was good. And I think the one game that I'll never forget, the first game we played, first loss for North Carolina in the Schmitt Center, when Len Bias went off for 35. And watching the way he outperformed Michael Jordan, every time they went head to head, if you look at the stats between Jordan and Bias, Lenny won every single battle between those two guys. And Jordan, of course, went to the NBA early. And I think everybody still has conversations about what would have happened had Len Bias stayed with the Boston Celtics and combined with Larry Bird. Oh my God, it'd have been a dynasty for years and years. That's one game that I remember. The shot that Drew Nicholas had against UNC Asheville to get us continuing in the NCAA tournament when he hit a runner at the buzzer. Probably in football, the ACC championship game down at NC State. We scored, I think, a last-minute touchdown to, it wasn't Julian Gary. Or maybe it was Julian Gary, yeah. And the way that the guys celebrated on the way back, and anytime you beat Clemson was also big for me because they were so good and so tough to beat down there. And the Virginia game when Lamont Jordan had 303 yards or 309 yards rushing, an incredible performance by Lamont, who now ends up with me and with Steve Suter doing the games. Another incident I remember well was when Boomer Esiason came to Maryland. And on press day, I went out there and did an interview with him, and he's supposed to be the savior of the program. And I said, so what makes you think you're going to be the starting quarterback as a freshman at the University of Maryland? So Boomer says, well, number one, I'm a winner, and you want a winning quarterback. Number two, you want an exciting quarterback that's going to put fans in the stands, and I will do that. Number three, you want to win a championship, and I'm here to do that. Any more questions? No, that was it. Another time, Kevin Plank, when he was special teams captain, and we're going to Clemson, and so on the bus to the stadium, he comes back and he says to me, hey, Johnny, do me a favor. My mother and father are listening to the game today. Give me a couple of extra tackles. I said, sure, it's radio. Who's going to know, right? It's radio. So the game is over. We got beat pretty handily by Clemson. So he comes back in the bus on the way to the airport. Now, Kevin was special teams captain, also a linebacker. So he comes back and he says, did you get, I said, yeah. I said, I gave you one tackle when you weren't even on the field. But I gave it to you because I know your mom and dad are listening and you grew up in my neighborhood and used to cut my grass. So I do owe you something. Yeah. So I gave you one tackle there. I gave you another tackle when you were flattened by a blocker about 30 yards downfield, but I gave you the tackle in that. And the third tackle I gave you, you piled on the pile. Okay, you were late, but you just jumped on, but I gave you Kevin Plank followed by boom, boom, boom. He goes, yes. And he remembers that today. It's radio, so I can kind of do anything I want to do on radio.
I mean, you're not the official stat keeper, so it's all right.
Yeah,
you're just
here you go.
Who cares? You're not.
That's right. Who cares? That's right.
Johnny, what would you say as you've kind of gotten older over these years and watched college athletics changed? Has it changed at all your desire, your kind of want to call college specifically, or has it actually increased it? Like, how would you describe your relationship with the way the sports have changed?
I think the worst thing for it was the NIL and the transfer portal. I think it's kind of ruined the college landscape because not only don't the fans know who they're going to have to cheer for next year or support, but who's the coach going to have playing for him next week maybe. I don't know who thought this thing out. I'm all for guys getting paid, no question about that. But if you don't have a big booster group behind you, I mean, look at the money that LSU is giving out with the NIL money they have down there because they have big boosters contributing. And they're talking about having this thing an even landscape. It's not even now. I mean, even in the Big Ten, we have more money now for football, supposedly coming in this year, thanks to Jim Schmitt and thanks to the Big Ten splitting up the revenues among the schools. But still, you get a Michigan booster or a Penn State booster who comes up and says, "Here's another $30 million that you want to use for your." So you're fighting an uphill battle all the time. And if we'd have had money last year, Roman Hemby would be our leading rusher and not Indiana's leading rusher. And who knows where Billy Edwards would have been in the quarterback situation. But we lost some good guys last year because we couldn't keep them. And you can't blame a guy for going somewhere if he's going to make some more money. But I think the allegiance to a school is completely vanished now. You know, it used to be when I was in high school, I couldn't wait to go to the University of Miami. That was my dream goal, to go to Miami. Some of my buddies couldn't wait to go to Florida State. The other guy couldn't wait to go to Georgia Tech and spend 4 years there. But now it's a rarity if you get a guy to stick around 4 years. Ethan Goff is a good example. He stuck around 4 years. We've got some other guys in the football team 4 years. But it's really tough. It's tough for the coaches because their coaching time is cut back because they're having to fundraise, having to raise money, go out for social events and cultivate and make promises and all this other stuff that they have to go through. And it's tough being a coach today. If you look how many guys have walked away from the game, like Tony Bennett and like, Wright up at Villanova and Boeheim and all these guys walking away, Nick Saban, because it doesn't fit what they were brought up to do. That was to coach guys and make them better for the next level to go to. So it's not my favorite cup of tea, but you have to adjust to it or you get left in the dust. Simple as that.
And I think with you, it's very clear when you watch or listen to a Johnny Holliday interview, you know how to connect and form a relationship with whoever you're interviewing. So I assume it's a little disappointing when you see an athlete that you kind of grew a relationship with get swept up in the transfer portal.
Yeah. When I do interviews with these guys, now basketball is a whole different landscape. I don't know any of them. They don't know me. But the football guys, the ones that have been around, they know me. They know that I'm not going to take shots at them, number one. I'm not going to second guess what they're doing. I'm there to call the game. If Steve Suter wants to question something or Lamont Jordan, that's fine. That's the analyst's job. And you see it all over television and all the networks and all the broadcasters have people that just slice them and dice it. But I'll sit there, and one funny story, I'll sit there and talk to a guy before I do the interview and maybe relax him a little bit. So I guess this was about the fourth game or fifth game of the year. I was coming in the campus off of Baltimore Avenue, and this lady's standing in the crosswalk doing this, and she's got her little boy with her. And so I rolled the window down and I said, "Can I help you?" And immediately after she said her first words, I knew who it was. She says, "Are you going to the game?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Would you mind giving me a lift because my son's on the game, on the team?" I said, "Would your son be the kicker?" "Yes, he's the kicker. He's the booter." She's got this Irish lovely accent, and she's perspiring, okay? She says, "I'm trying to get down because the team will walk down the roadway, and I want to be there to say hello to him and shake the pom-pom and let him know his mom is here." I said, "Hop in the car." So we go down to the garage, and she made it. And she says, "They told me at the hotel The stadium's only a couple of blocks away. You can walk it. I've been walking for 45 minutes, lad. 45 and perspiring. Okay. So later on, I do an interview with him, maybe 3 weeks later. And I said, I had a chance to pick up somebody and take them to the game that you know quite well. And he says to me, yes, understand you picked up my mom. Well, I didn't exactly pick her up. I gave her a ride. I wasn't picking up women, but I gave her a ride to the stadium. And we've kept in touch ever since. And he's the neatest kid. But immediately, are you going to the game? Yes, I am. Could I get a lift? Yes, you can. You can't. And then the next week, I'm coming into the garage after the game, and there's this gentleman walking with a walker. And I said, can I give you a lift to your car? He said, I'd appreciate that. So the week before, I get the kicker. This week, he gets in the car, and he said, Johnny, how you doing? I said, good. It's been a long time. I have no idea who it is. I said, yeah, it's been way too long. And he says, I met you 25 years ago. I was Mike Loxley's high school football coach. So I pick up the kicker's mother. The next week, I got the head coach's former coach. You never know who you're going to meet at the campus.
That's absolutely unbelievable. When you look back at Maryland as well, do you have some favorite names that you've called of Maryland athletes? Ones that stick out that you love to say?
Sarunas Yasikevicius, Obina Akizi, Gravis Vasquez is easy. I don't think there were. Well, that's a great question. I'd have to say, no, I can't think of any more. I always ask them if I'm puzzled about how you pronounce their name. You know, when you look at it, it may look one way, but it's pronounced totally different. I'll ask them, how should I pronounce your name? And they'll tell me, which I don't want to blow anybody's name on the air. But I don't think there's been anybody that's really been Darius Hayward Bay, that was easy. Scott Milanovich, that was easy. No, I don't think there's been any guys that have really been challenging. But I love Sarunas Yasikevicius.
Who is that?
Oh, you don't know who he is?
No idea.
Okay. Sarunas played, I think he played back for Gary. And then he went over and he has been the champion of the Lithuanian League over there as a coach. And there was some talk about him coming back to the States some years ago when Maryland was looking to make a coaching after Gary retired. And his name popped up as a possible head coach in Maryland. Look him up, and you'll find a resume that's this long of things he's done and accomplished as a player and as a coach over there. Really a neat guy.
I just looked it up. He does a pretty long playing and coaching history. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you one question and see if you remember doing this. When we interviewed you 2 years ago now, we asked you to voice a little bit of like an intro and outro for our podcast. And since then, every episode we've done, it has started with your voice and ended with your voice as well. Yes. I'll play the intro for you right now.
Hey, let me hear it. Yeah.
You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Okay.
Johnny, if we had any royalty money, we'd give some to you. Don't worry.
Maybe I could say, how's it start off again? Under the Shell? I couldn't catch the first couple of words. What did I say the first couple of words?
You said you're listening to you said you're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America. And since then, it's every episode we've done it. We've slapped that on the beginning, and then the outro, you say something pretty similar.
Why don't we say you're listening to the Under the Shell Podcast, still after all these years, the best in America.
I love it.
Brilliant.
Go into the women's basketball team. We'll start with them. Guys, one of the craziest comebacks I've ever seen from any team on at my time here. Twice, Maryland faced a seemingly improbable deficit, and then twice they made incredible comebacks. They were trailing by 9 points with 45 seconds left, and then tied the game and eventually took the lead and won in double overtime over Minnesota. Incredible game. I mean, just in general, like, this team has faced so much adversity this year. Now, Kayleen Schmitt, that just before the game announced that she's out for the season, but to bounce back and to win that game, Brendan, I thought the play that really epitomized it, and I'm wondering if you feel the same, came from an unheralded source there, getting a steal and scoring and one layup. Can you talk a little bit about that play and just kind of what it resembles for this Maryland team?
Yeah, Kendall Walker played, I think she logged 1 minute in that game. But when they needed a steal most, she got one, and then she got an and one, which then started the train for Alucci to get another and one. It was a brilliant sequence, but I think it shows that, everybody on the bench is always going to be ready. I mean, she had literally, if you come into a game in double overtime and that's the first impact you make, and you're ready to go and you can do that, it's pretty unbelievable. I was confused about some of the subbing in the second overtime just because of how the five had looked that were playing. Obviously there's fouls and such like that. I think the more impressive play was Yarden Garzon to actually force the double overtime. I mean, you could talk about the fact that they even got the game to overtime. Minnesota should have easily won this game in regulation, but Garzon hits a very deep three to cut it to a 2-point game, and then after Maryland forces a turnover, she hits a jelly layup going under the hoop to the right side, and a thing of beauty, a layup you don't often see of that caliber from her. So she forces the double overtime, and then in double overtime, Maryland obviously goes down. And it's so funny because before the season, we were talking about, how much depth this team has. And Garzon played 50 minutes, Poffenbarger played 48, and Addie Mack played 49. The depth is kind of gone. I mean, it's very unfortunate the way injuries have plagued this team. Really, before Big Ten play started, before the Minnesota game, 3 players who they thought were going to play a pretty solid amount of minutes, and 2, Leah Barthelme and Kayleen Schmitt. I mean, these were 2 starters pretty much. To lose them and still be able to have adversity and win a game like this is huge, but I think it definitely has some concerning signs for later in the season.
Yeah, they need Bree McDaniel back now, I think, more than ever. We talked all offseason. I felt like Mike mentioned how deep this team was, like, every time we talked about the women's hoops team. And now all their depth is kind of gone. I mean, think about just the injuries they've suffered. So they're going to have to keep stepping up. But, I mean, to be the top 10 team in the country right now, I think they're number 7 right now. Like, it's incredibly impressive. Brenda Fries I think I can officially say, is probably one of, if not a top 5 coach in the current landscape of college basketball on the women's side. Just an incredibly impressive job so far. And they're going to have some tough upcoming tests. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. I mean, they blew out. I mean, it was a massacre of Delaware State last night, 91-21. They have one
to
more.
No one's surprise, but
yeah, they kind of have one more cupcake, but then they'll get into Big Ten play. But guys, they won't play a ranked team until January 11th against Ohio State. So obviously some tougher opponents. Illinois on the road. Indiana's always solid, but they could still be undefeated by the time the new year rolls around, which that would be really impressive.
I believe that was my prediction. I would not have guessed that. If I knew the depth they would have at this point, I would have said definitely not. I would have thought they'd probably drop the Kentucky and the Minnesota game. But the fact they've been able to pull both of those out, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have 5 players and 3 of them can play the whole game and they're pretty darn good, depth doesn't quite matter as much. And we've seen that over so many years in college basketball. The fact that Yarden Garzon is playing 50 minutes in a game in December, and Poffenbarger and Mack are pretty much doing the same. I mean, then you just need to be able to play some really good defense, and you have a solid chance. But I still think lack of size is going to hurt them in the Big Ten. But I'll stick with my prediction that Maryland will be undefeated through the new year.
And our next guest for our 100th episode was actually the first guest ever on Under the Shell. We have Maryland baseball trainer Tyler Cronin. Tyler, thank you for joining us again 99 episodes later.
No, thank you guys. Like I said, this is a huge honor to join you guys for 100, so thank you.
Well, to get it kicked off, just what's the past 3 years been like for you doing Maryland baseball? What's this been like? There's been some coaching turnover. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Obviously, every year brings its unique set of challenges, and you know, Coach Swope obviously took over the helm a couple of years ago, and it's been awesome. He brings his own approach to kind of the game and how he manages the players and all that. And with today's landscape and in the transfer portal and all of that, there's been a lot of roster turnover, which for some of our support staff can be challenging. Trying to get a sense of the new players and trying to fit them into our system. From my perspective, trying to get them cleared in August is always a huge challenge when there's a lot of guys joining the team. But it's been good. They've been, each culture has gotten better and better over the past few years. And all these guys really work their tails off. So Henry Bergman, our strength coach, has really been challenging them in the weight room with some new stuff, some unique things that have kind of grown over the past couple of years. And hopefully, I think we'll see some of those benefits come February. So
I was listening back to the first ever interview we did this morning before I hopped on this call, and you mentioned the love of doing this job for the relationships with the players. Where do you stand on that now, obviously, with 3 more years of experience and 3 more years at Maryland? Obviously, there's a medical part of it, but where do you kind of stand? Do you do this job for the love of helping players get better medically, or building those relationships, or a combination of both?
that's kind of what it's all about. We're here for the student athletes, so we do it for the players. Whether we're working, I could stop working baseball today and work a completely different sport. We're not really tied to one sport or the other. We do it for the student athletes that are here on campus. And like I said, there's new ones every year that bring their kind of unique challenges. I think back to, when I was in Texas, I worked with Sam Houston State baseball. And those guys are a different breed, right? They're cowboys. They work on the farm. They get injured building a fence, things like that. And some of them, you're trying to rehab them for baseball, but you're also trying to rehab them for life. And that's something that I really picked up on back then is, baseball will end for a lot of these guys one day. And that's just the reality. Not everybody's going to go to the big leagues. But how can we get them to a place when, they're a junior or a senior where they can transition to the rest of their lives? Some guys, here, criminal justice is a really big major that a lot of our guys are in. They're going to be in law enforcement. So they're going to be a police officer, things like that. How can we get them to a space physically, mentally, where they can kind of succeed at that next level, whether that's baseball next level or next level of life. So that's really a challenge that I've kind of took upon myself and kind of learned as I've grown in this profession. Like I said, baseball may end for a lot of these players, but where can we get them kind of in that next step? So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all about the student athlete. We want to help the players win baseball games. We want to collect more rings, right? Winning the Big Ten is awesome. Going to a regional that's huge. That's a goal. Everything going to Omaha, but we want to make sure the players are happy. They enjoy what they're doing, and we kind of bring their goals back into perspective. Some guys might not have baseball goals, like I said. So, it's all about the guys at the end of the day.
Kind of speaking about Sam Houston State, and I think this is a testament to the relationships you build with the players. I saw at a game last year, I believe Colton Cowser was there to see you. Am I correct?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
your relationship with him like?
So yeah, we he he was a goofy. He still kind of is a little bit of a goofball. He'll text me about, he's building a Millennium Falcon Lego set, and send me pictures of all that. So, but at Sam Houston, we had a great relationship. He was a little bit banged up, just kind of some weird things here and there. We worked through a lot of that stuff together. And you could just tell he was going to be a big leaguer someday, but you didn't really know where or how he was going to fit in. He was just really gifted, especially in the weight room. I mean, he's throwing around weights that guys aren't even touching, and he doesn't look like everybody else. Like, he's not really big and jacked, but he's doing his work, and he just worked his tail off. He was one of those guys that just always put in more than everybody else, and obviously he's kind of reaping some of those benefits now. So when we played, that was against Nebraska. So Coach Harvell, assistant coach of Nebraska, was at Sam Houston State with us. So they got in touch, and he wanted to come down and kind of watch BP and hang out for the game. So we talked for a while. You know, he always asked about my family is the first question he asked about, which I think is awesome. You know, he's just a really down to earth dude. And obviously he's been having a lot of success in the big leagues, and I kind of wish him all the best. So he's just one of those guys that you look back on in your career and you're like, yeah, that guy really made a difference in my life, and I hope that, you know, I made a difference in his as well.
Tyler, I remember talking to you, you know, a couple years ago, and just you were still kind of settling into the area a little bit, still kind of, you know, I think not finding your way, but establishing yourself. How much do you feel like you've grown in this role, and how much has changed since that first interview to where, like, do you feel that this is like a place that you could, a job and a place that you could do for the rest of your career?
Yeah, for sure. You know, a few years ago, obviously, we were coming off of some success in the Big Ten. We were still kind of transitioning to our current medical model where we're with the health center exclusively. You know, we've kind of had a few years under our belt with that. Um, and this is a place that I love. I love Maryland. This is the first place that really gave me a chance when I was coming out of grad school from Michigan. And, you know, being an intern with this team, with baseball. And I've had a lot of really good memories here. My wife and I, Amber, we have two kids that were born and raised here in Maryland now. We have a 3-year-old and then a 4-month-old. So, you know, this is a place that we're kind of putting down some roots, and we hope to be here for a really long time and be a part of this great athletic department. Jim Smith coming in, you know, really just a down to earth dude that really wants to kind of get the feedback of everybody that works here. And I think that's really awesome. Just kind of asking about, you know, what do people need? You know, he'll ask you what you need, and then, you know, he says it's his job to kind of figure out how to make that happen. So I think that's really been awesome. And, you know, all the coaches and all the support staff that we have here, we really just mesh really well together. So yeah, I could see myself here for a really long time.
Brilliant. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for hopping back on for the 100th episode. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you for 1,000.
That would be great. No, you guys are doing a great job. You know, it's been fun listening to you and all the guests that you guys have been collecting. So I wish you guys all the success. And yeah, I'm available for 1,000. You can pencil me in now.
Definitely. Let's move on to a team that's definitely not undefeated. The men's basketball squad. Really, really kind of tough place to be in right now. They don't look good, and the number 2 team in the country, number 3 team in the country, who probably is the best
country.
squad.
They're the best team in the country. It's not even close.
It's coming to Maryland on Saturday. Michigan Wolverines. They've blown teams out. They just smoked our old buddy Kevin Willard and Villanova down in Chrysler Center, kicking off or capping off a run of beating conference or high level opponents by 25 or more. They've won now like 5 straight games doing that, including beating Gonzaga, who was then the number 1 team in the country by
dismantling
a bajillion. And if people remember, Gonzaga dismantled Maryland. So we're not at a good place. This team just lacks offensive creation other than Pharrell Payne. Miles Rice is getting no playing time and doesn't look good when he's on the court. There's just not a lot of offensive cohesion, and I don't think that we're going to see much change in that area. So right now, guys, if I had to put this line at Maryland getting 4.5 Big Ten wins, would you say that that's an over or an under?
Wow, I can't believe that's a line. I'll take the over.
I'll take the under.
I see how you made it, but their schedule is not awesome.
I would also probably take the over. I do think it is like we've talked about this a lot, and at this point of the season, you would have hoped that these issues or this like chemistry issue would have been solved. But again, it is a team of guys who did not play together last year. There's been a lot of injuries in and out of the lineups. There just hasn't been a lot of cohesion to start the year. And like Buzz said, as the year goes on, they might win some games that they shouldn't win. So as a Maryland fan, you hope that that's the case, but there's been nothing so far this year to make you honestly believe that. Saturday's game, I'm excited. I'm not excited. I'm interested to see what the crowd looks like at Xfinity Center. because you got finals going on. You got the team that's not been playing well. I'm
Oh
interested.
God, we're talking crowd.
It's always the crowd.
Oh, we're talking crowd.
What the fan base looks like on Saturday. And then, yeah, I'm also interested to see how much Michigan beats Maryland by.
I think it'll. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea what the crowd will be like. They're all giving out T-shirts, so that obviously helped. But Michigan's the second best team in the country. I mean, I just don't know at this point how much people are paying attention to that. And it's in the midst of finals. I think it'll be a decent crowd. Probably, honestly, a good amount of Michigan fans. They have a good
I'm not gonna lie, guys.
alumni base, but
So I bought tickets to go see this game because my family from Michigan is coming up. The tickets for the nosebleeds were pretty expensive. So
that's probably because Michigan fans. I can't lie.
insider scoop, yeah, there's a ton of Michigan fans in the DMV, like a lot. Because I mean, think about every football
every football game. It's like
fills up with-
you're basically in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, so I would expect
Michigan football. Anyways,
I would expect there to be a lot of maize and blue. I think it'll be a good crowd. I think Maryland is going to get blown out, so we don't need to talk much more about that. Moving off of men's hoops, another really disappointing ending to a season now. I feel like we said that about men's soccer the past couple years. This was a great campaign, but to lose on your home field in a really like non-competitive game, to be honest. Like they scored that first goal, but Washington controlled it the entire way.
The last 70 minutes, Maryland couldn't do anything. I mean, nothing.
It turned into like, it's like, guys, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a soccer expert, but there seemed like there was no urgency. Like there was no rush to create offensive chances. It was like, it looked like they hadn't been in that type of position before. And now
they weren't.
They weren't. Yeah, exactly. And now Washington advances to the College Cup. Maryland's left out of the Final Four for another year. And a season that ended, or started with such promise and such hope and really kind of ended in a sputtering fashion. I mean, I know they won, obviously, a couple of games in the tournament, but to not win the Big Ten tournament, to not win the NCAA tournament, or at the very least get to the Final Four, feels like a really kind of squandered chance for Sasha Sarovsky's team, even though it was such a great season. So I don't want to take away from that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it just feels like they were too good for their own good. Like they did not face adversity. I mean, seriously, they did not face adversity early on in the year. And what does that turn out to be when you face that in the Big Ten tournament, and then you face that again in the NCAA tournament? It's like they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to deal with that. Just look at the 2018 team that won the title, and Aiden Curry of the Diamondback has a pretty good story on this up now, but they lost their opener at Washington. They tied against number 10 Stanford. They tied against number 7 Virginia. Then they lost against UCLA. That was how they opened their title-winning season. This year they just ran through opponents until the Big Ten tournament, and then you start to see cracks, and then it happens again in the NCAA tournament, and the same thing happens with how they respond. They don't. They look flat. They look like they just don't know how to handle that sort of pressure. So,
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Aiden, I was talking to him after the game, and his sentiment was that he felt like the season wasn't over. He felt like there was a ton of unfinished business on this team. And it makes sense when you go through a whole season, you have an undefeated regular season, and you lose 2 games the whole time. Both those are playoff games. I think, honestly, in that game, the team looked flat, and they didn't have the same energy they had played with. It kind of seemed like they got that first goal, and they were like, all right, here we go again. We've done this 12 times this season. We score first, and then we play pretty solid defense, and Mac bails us out, and we win a game maybe 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. That's kind of what it looked like for the first 15, 20 minutes. Maryland had a good amount of energy, had a lot of the chances, and then, I mean, after that, they really couldn't get anything to go. I mean, offensively from that point, maybe they had 1 or 2 good chances after the 20-minute mark in the first half. So overall, I mean, obviously this season doesn't end how you want it to end, but undefeated regular season, win the Big Ten regular season, it's solid. But obviously Sasha is not satisfied without the championship. But it's tough. It honestly is.
I mean, even just the energy you talked about it, Brendan. I mean, after they gave up that second goal, I saw Saddam Masareka and Luka Kostabel were getting into it, kind of just like, what is happening right now? And that kind of felt like it encapsulated where the team was at. But disappointing ending, kind of a familiar theme for fall sports.
All right, we have yet another interview for our 100th episode. This time it's our former social media manager and dear friend, Eddy Calkins. Eddy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate the invite.
Of course. Tell me about your history with the Under the Shell podcast. I remember when we interviewed you 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. You're a big fan of the Laundry Day listening. What does that mean? Break it down and tell us what that means.
Oh, man, you're so right. Yeah, when you guys started your podcast our freshman year, it was really great to see, and I would listen to it every time I did my laundry. Because the laundry is a screw up here at the University of Maryland. It's a fight for your laundry. It's terrible. It's awful. But I was able to listen to you guys and I find some enjoyment in doing my laundry. It was the perfect time. You guys had about an hour and a half podcast. That's about how long it would take to do the laundry. So I'd turn it on, walk downstairs all the way down from 7th floor of Ellicott Hall and listen to you guys. And then by the time the interview was done, that usually meant my washer was done, and then I put stuff in the dryer and then listened to the rest of the episode and you guys talk about Maryland athletics. So it was actually perfectly timed for laundry.
Wow. I'll just say it myself. I'm honored that we were part of your laundry day routine. So thank you for making us part of your week, you know? Yeah, I mean, we as we talked about in the episode, we're going to talk about, like, we've been pretty consistent and very consistent, which for loyal listeners like you made it a nice part of your routine. Every time you had laundry day, you could just throw us on. I want to talk about your transition. You start working for Under the Shell as social media manager. You've maybe listened to more episodes than just about everybody out there. What are your fondest memories from that time?
Oh, I knew this question was coming. I so knew it. And I really, it's hard for me to pick one because, like you said, you guys were so consistent and every episode was really good in a different way. And every guest you've gotten, every hot take analysis, whatever you've done has been top tier, especially for students. I think it's really professional quality. Some fondest memories. I mean, I have your T-shirt from season 1, right? And I think that's got to be
That's unbelievable. That's
I'm
an
sure
exclusive.
I still have it. I'm sure I still have it. But I think it shows the level of guests that you guys got, and you can see on the back of that shirt. It starts out at a couple players, a couple folks who people may not know, and then you all of a sudden get Michael Loxley. I think Brenda Fries was on that season. Johnny Holliday, I think, was on that season too. I mean, you guys, you can see it on a T-shirt where you went from some folks that people may not understand and realize. Of course, they're a crucial part of Maryland athletics, but then all the way up to the big dogs with Michael Loxley, Brenda Fries, and all them. So I think the T-shirt was great. When I started working, oh man, it was cool to see you guys operate. I wasn't on many of the calls, but I think that's probably for my benefit because I liked seeing the final product. And I really do remember your probably best episode was when you interviewed, it was some donor, and I can't remember his name, which is stupid of me, but it was some donor right after the Kevin Willard situation. And he really put it into perspective. And I think in terms of what you guys stand for and what you strive to do for your content, that was your best episode because it was timely. It gave people a chance to see under the shell of Maryland athletics, see what I did there, and really engage the audience in a way that nobody else had done so far.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the Harry Geller interview, you were pretty helpful.
Yeah, Harry. Yeah.
Getting all the details worked out for that one and making sure our questions were good. So you're always working behind the scenes. But tell us what you've been up to in this past year after you left Under the Shell and continue your journalism career. I know you've been staying busy, and that might be an understatement.
Yeah, I'm understatement of the year, but I really wish I could have kept doing social media for you guys. I love doing it, and the content you guys are putting out now is just great. But like I said, I've been at it. I'm here at University of Maryland with the Capital News Service TV Bureau. Done that a couple days. I have an internship with NBC4 in Washington, so that's an all-day affair, 3 times a week. And so also with Terrapin Sports Central, which you guys started out with as a podcast when you were a little baby podcast.
That's true. People forget that we did actually start at TSC, where you're now obviously the head honcho there. But That is
I told
funny.
you this summer we'd welcome you guys back if you wanted it.
That's true.
But you took a good route, and I'm glad to see you guys getting sponsorships. And
We've hit free agency a couple times.
You have.
But I'm loyal to the Catalyst hot dogs now, you know.
Gotta be.
But one day maybe TSC will get funding. So
I hope so. That's technically your job, Brendan.
yes, it is technically my job
As our official treasurer. Yeah.
It is my job. But well, thank you for telling us what you've been up to and taking some time to talk about Under the Shell. You've been a big piece on the listener side and also Under the Shell as well in our own department, helping us out with socials. Last year and the year before that. So we're very, very happy that we're able to have you on for the 100th episode. So thank you so much for hopping on.
Yeah, I can't believe 100 episodes. You guys you're killing it. I think I told you this when we interviewed, and every day, every episode that you guys are the best here at Maryland. So I hope you keep going. I don't know what those plans are, but really good work, and it's been an honor to be part of it and then also listening to it.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Eddy.
Now that we've talked about all the athletic teams here, we want to take a time to kind of reflect back. I mean, 100 episodes, like, we haven't missed a week for a non-break.
We've even done bonus content.
We've done bonus episodes. We've done holiday specials. We've done multiple interviews. We've done deep dives. It's really been an incredible time with this crew. In terms of the semester just this year, to quickly recap, it was a lot of fun. We had a bunch of really great guests. I felt like this year we kind of took a step forward. Had a new sponsor. Shout out Inside Black and Gold. Shout out Catalyst Hot Dogs.
Yep.
And I felt like our guests were great. I mean, Quincy Wilson recently, I think that was the first public appearance he had after committing to Maryland for an interview. We talked to Sasha Sarovsky for the first time. That was really fun. Same with Missy Maharg. So got some coaches that we wanted. Barry Gossett was a great interview. That we talked
Jake
to.
Funk, very solid. Yeah.
Yeah, Jake Funk. I mean, just Walt Williams for our men's basketball.
We started with the athletic director. I mean, this season is impressive. I'll say that.
We had Tom McMillan before Pablo Torre got him. So that it was just a really great time. And I felt like this year too, like, you guys, like, these guys, the two of them, Brendan is an incredible producer. I mean, he organizes everything. Mike helps out getting a ton of guests. Just the chemistry that the three of us have, I feel like just keeps getting better and better and better. And I know that I wouldn't want to do a podcast with anybody else. So to recap our 100th episode, we're going to take a look back at some of the best moments, games, and podcast kind of lore from our 100 episodes that we've recorded. So, Brendan, I'll start with you. During kind of this run that we've had here, I don't even need you to pick like a game that happened. I want you to talk about your favorite Maryland game or moment that we talked about on the podcast. Like, what's a great conversation that you remember having about a game or a moment?
Oh, wow. That's tough. I think we've had some very, very good conversations. I think a lot of our football conversations have been extremely enjoyable. I would say this season, honestly, sometime in the last 2 months, just talking about what's going on with Loxley and if they're going to keep him, if they're going to fire him. I loved that. And then I think the other thing that we did really well that I really loved talking about was just breaking down the Kevin Willard saga. We had Harry Geller on pretty timely manner. I think a couple hours.
That was when you stole my moment, man.
Yeah, no, I stole your moment. That was kind of our best like journalistic moment. I mean, he had very good insight on what had gone down. I just think the oddities of how Willard handled it, him getting booed, walking out to the Sweet 16. I mean, that's something that should never happen. Just the way all that went down and all the frustration that all the fans were feeling. I think it was just a great conversation to get everybody's perspective. And I think we were all pretty riled up about it because it's just something you don't see very often.
Definitely. I was going to say that. I was in San Francisco covering that game, and I recorded it from there. And I just remember like the conversation we had, I felt like covered it a lot in depth. Mike did a great job. I remember Mike talking about kind of what this meant for Maryland. I think you did a great job of kind of like just laying it all out there. Like, here's what's happening. And I think I was able to kind of provide perspective on what Willard was talking about, what the mood was. So we kind of had like all of our bases covered. And then obviously to get Barry like a week or so later, like I think that or not Barry, Harry, sorry. Two boosters named Barry and Harry is kind of like we got to switch it up, guys. I think that those were some of my favorite moments.
I'm thinking basketball here because I feel like when we've been here, I think we've had like the best basketball moments to talk about. So I'm thinking freshman year, we get on and we're talking about Jameer's shot in the Gold Rush game against Illinois. That was a moment. Freshman year, all of us storming the court against Purdue and then talking about it on the pod the next week. That was pretty electric. And then the Derek Queen shot last year. I think we've honestly been spoiled with some of the basketball moments that we've had. I definitely think that those have been some of the more fun conversations. Also, anytime I got into a baseball debate with Sam and he wanted to tick me off and say something about the pitching or how the team wasn't as good as I was saying they were, those are always
your baseball takes last year were atrocious. There's no two ways about it, Mike.
And I would be right in all of those takes, by the way. The baseball team has always been bad.
They're gonna finish top of the Big Ten regular season. I don't even know. I mean,
that goes right into our next segment, which is a perfect segue. What's been your favorite take someone has dropped on the pod? It can be a great take, it can be a terrible take. What's been your favorite take somebody dropped?
Jesus,
Shalik Knots is terrible. That's my favorite take. Sam for no reason was just Shalik Knots is a year away, and then this year he gets. I think Sam owns this NIL merch. I think from Shalik Knots.
Was he their leading receiver? I thought it was Farouk.
He must have been. There's no way someone else got more than, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Shalik definitely was.
Yeah,
it was Shalik. Not their leading catch guy. That's actually what I was talking about. It was Farouk.
Well, maybe if you stick around for the Terrific Terp, you'll hear some more stuff like that.
Wow, yeah, literally. I will say my favorite take from someone. You kind of stole mine. I was gonna say Mike's baseball prediction, but I will give myself a little bit of a self-deprecating humor. I thought that Derek Queen was gonna be good, but not great. I remember saying, I was saying like, I don't know, like a lot of pressure on a freshman. Like I don't really know if I see it. Like him being elite from day one. Obviously, DQ was incredible year. Went to the NBA, has been even better. So that was not a great take by me, I will say. But I'll give myself credit. Both football seasons, I've been pretty close to nailing their record predictions. Other than last year, I was not on it. But the year before, I said 8 wins. This year, I said they were going to win 4 or 5. That happened. Like I think I've been pretty on top of it, so I'll say those.
That take looked pretty terrible about 3 months ago, but it's good.
I was never worried.
I'm gonna take us back to September. Now, this was a game that in the summer I was talking about. Imagine if this happens and the Terps do this, and that was walking into Madison and beating Wisconsin, which happened. But after that game, I was ready to get a plane ticket to a bowl game. I thought that, what the hell could go wrong in this final stretch? Like, there is no shot they don't make a bowl game. They're 4-0. They've got 8 games remaining. You're telling me they can't win 2 out of 8 games to make a bowl game? What are we talking about?
It's funny. If they had won one more game, they actually would have made a bowl game.
Yeah.
They needed to win one game. We didn't know at the time, but...
So I'm gonna go our takes back in September. Mostly my takes about this team. I think I was a little high on the supply of Terps football then, and got a little ahead of myself.
I remember calling it the biggest win in Mike Loxley's career at the time. Like low key, I don't even know.
It still might be.
It might be. The USC game was pointless in its pointless season at the time. Low key. Nah, it's still pretty bad.
It's probably NC State or one of the bowl game wins, which is also brutal to say. So,
you really can't tell the complete story of the Under the Shell podcast without Cavit Ireland, one of our original hosts back in season 1. He was with us for the first 15 episodes or so, but we're very happy to be joined by him again. Cavit, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brendan. It's a pleasure to catch up, relive some of those old memories starting out Under the Shell back in the McKeldin podcasting labs. We would rent those rooms out and chop it up, talk Terp sports. It was fun times. Came up with our terrific Terps and our locks of the week that most of them didn't really hit very often, but we tried.
You instilled some of that culture. You helped me with the first ever Terrific Terp, which was Irene Knox, maybe the most famous Terrific Terp of them all. Honestly, she probably gets mentioned like one every 3 episodes at this point.
Really, certainly
Yeah,
my favorite.
I mean, just hilarious, right? Sharpshooter.
Sharpshooter, a pioneer of early women's sports.
Really not talked about enough, honestly. But I do remember those treks from La Plata Hall, from our dormitorium to the podcasting studio. Thankfully, we've moved on from the podcasting studio. There was always something wrong with that place. I can't lie. The audio in there, I never could figure out.
It seemed like the hardware was always kind of battling against us too, with some stuff that could probably use a little bit more funding, maybe an upgrade here or there. But we made it work for the beginning.
What's your story been in college, journalistic wise, not journalistic wise? Tell the people what you've been up to.
Yeah, so it's been a good ride. I'm now working as an intern for the Washington Gardener magazine, which is a local gardening magazine based out of Silver Spring. Covers mid-Atlantic gardening trends. It has some profiles. We visit local gardens in the area and write stories about that. Yesterday I was interviewing, or Monday rather, I was interviewing this woman from the Rehoboth Art League. So it reaches into Delaware. People read the magazine, they learn about what's going on in the gardening world in the Mid-Atlantic, and it's fun. We have a small community garden plot in Silver Spring, right by my editor Kathy Jentz's house, and she's been great working with her the entire semester, and some good journalistic experience with something that it's a little bit more outside the box.
Outside the shell, outside the box, whatever you may be there. I know also you've had a radio show now for, this must be your at least third year, doing it since freshman year, second semester. So tell us about that as well.
Yep, this is year 3 of Sonic Fruit on WMUC FM College Park. You could tune in Tuesdays at 11 a.m. if you want to listen to some rock and roll. I like to play a good variety of music. I have some guests on every once in a while to share their music. It's like what you would hear in the car, every few songs, talk, give you a few fun facts, tell you a story. And that's one of the more rewarding parts of being really just a student here at Maryland, but I guess in our realm, a journalism student, because we're geared more towards that. But it is open to anybody. So any students out there that want to get involved with something on campus, and it doesn't have to be music like what I do. There's guys that do sports talk shows. There's guys that do news. There's people that do, they talk about books and other stuff, like really whatever you want to send out to the world. And other than that, I've been working with CNS for my capstone, as all of us Merrill students do here. And that's been some really solid experience, just getting like a real feel for a newsroom and kind of seeing the true behind the scenes of how live TV newscast goes into production.
Very well. Do you have a favorite track you've spun on Sonic Fruit? What's been the number one track?
There's many favorite tracks that I have spun. There's a few that pop up more often than others. There's a few, like, I try not to play the same songs over and over again, but every couple of months I'll have a repeat. And one that comes to mind is a Pearl Jam song that I played yesterday, and it's called Amongst the Waves. That's one that just sticks out to me because it's a Pearl Jam tune from the mid-2000s, came out on an album called Backspacer, which, if you were to look at the discography of Pearl Jam as a whole now, if we dive really deep, it sounds more mature than their early stuff, that like their more popular music that people would know, but it also still has that raw emotion where it seems like these guys can still rock out, and that's just one of the recent ones that comes to mind. But artists that I love, I'll try to hand pick some tunes from them every show, just because I get to play whatever I want, and I hope that people enjoy it too. But I also try to play some stuff that people have never heard before. Maybe I'll give you a new idea, new artist to listen to.
I appreciate it. I mean, I remember freshman year, always looking back, kind of, if I look back on my like songs, definitely some inspiration from you there. It's some good times of freshman year, and it's nice to go under the shell a little bit with you here for Sonic Fruit, maybe some Pearl Jam as well. But we appreciate you hopping back on the podcast with us for the 100th episode and talking to us a bit about your life. So, Cavit, thanks for making the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well then, that will take us to our final segment, which is, guys, what is your favorite guest that we've ever brought on? This doesn't have to be like the best guest, just the person you had the most fun chatting with. I feel like we do this every year, but I just want now, in totality, across all seasons, who's been your favorite guest?
There have been so many guests where the episode ends and I'm still smiling, or like we call each other. I'm like, oh my God, this is the best interview ever. That happens way too often. We're a bit of overreactors after our interviews. There's been so many good ones. I think I'm just going to go with a very early one just because of how it kind of set the podcast in motion. And you probably wouldn't guess this. Our 9th ever guest, it was Jaron Smith. I think it was our first current athlete that we had. And it really set the podcast in motion. It was a very solid interview. He told us some cool stories. We did good research for it. I asked him a question about his Instagram bio or some garbage like that. It was just the interview to me that was like, okay, this is reputable. Like, we can do this. We can continue doing this. And he had a lot of fun doing the interview, it seemed. And I always think back on that moment. I was sitting in the library in Night Hall and just leaving there and being like, this is really fun. And I definitely want to continue doing this.
I'm surprised he didn't take this interview. I'm going with Johnny Holliday. I think
Johnny Holliday's the best.
I mean, every time we talk to Johnny, it's exactly what you said. We were FaceTiming, we're calling each other. That was probably one of the best interviews. This guy is an unbelievable interview. He is so fun to talk to. I mean, the recording that you guys heard for this episode, we talked to Johnny for like another 20 minutes. That just was not, we just did not.
He basically did a play for us. It was awesome.
Yeah. So Johnny is electric. I wish we could have had him burst into Music Man for our interview on this episode, though. I think that, the listeners deserve to hear that. We're sorry for cutting off the recording early.
Yeah, that was incredible. You guys picked two good ones. Jaron Smith is not one I would have gone with, but Brendan, I do remember that. That might have been the episode that when I was walking back from McKeldin, I fell on my back and broke my laptop because it was so.
Oh my God!
That was a memory.
Yeah, that's never been leaked until this day. We were walking back. This really takes us back to our roots. I know people probably know this, but if you're a newer listener, the way we used to record this podcast was we would go to the McKeldin podcasting studio, and we would sit there and we would talk about the sports, and it was a big pain to edit, I can't lie. And I felt like something always went wrong. We'd get there and the room wouldn't be ready, or it would take me 45 minutes to fix the microphones that someone had broken, or we would step on the circuit breaker in the middle of the we'd step on the circuit breaker in the middle of the episode, or Jonas Evans would be walking by and distract us. It
was just too much. There was a lot going on in the McKeldin second floor, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, second. Yeah.
And honestly,
you think about it though, that's where the podcast.
We will record another episode in there at some point. Maybe our final episode before I graduate, because obviously you two are graduating. But
also shout out. I mean, the timing of this episode coming on me and Sam's last week of school. It's very.
This episode comes out the day you graduate, Mike.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Crazy.
I mean, it's just funny to think the way the episodes used to work. I remember the first episode we ever recorded, I was like, oh, I'll edit it in 2 days. And they were like, this is not timely at all. We're talking. It's I got a lot of stuff going on. I think I'll edit it 2 days. I just wasn't in all of our careers as journalists and people and speakers, we were not at the same point. I mean, it's hilarious to listen back to some of those first episodes. They were pretty bad. I mean, they were not good.
It's also interesting to see how they switched it up. I mean, we listened back to the Irene Knox Terrific Terp, the first ever episode we did, the Tyler Cronin episode, and we spent 10 minutes after the Cronin interview just breaking down what we thought from the interview. And it's what? Why are we going in circles right now? Let's move on to Maryland sports. Yeah. And then trivia question: what was the original name of Terrific Terp?
Oh my God, we talked about this. It was
What was the original name?
It was tantalizing. Or was it? I have no idea. What was it?
Terrific Turtle.
Terrific Turtle. Freak. I did not. Yeah, I remember we listened back.
Yeah. Like, so much has changed, even like the little things like that. It's pretty funny to go back and listen. And
A huge moment in podcast history was, I think, when you broke all of your bones in your body, and so we started recording online. Like, this is why we're using Riverside.
This is why we started doing that on Zoom, and then I don't remember when we switched to Riverside. Was that?
It was sometime once we joined Testudo Times. I think it was early on sophomore year.
Yeah.
But that was a whole nother chapter of our history. Our double free agency stints. I think Mike posted on Instagram like a Kevin Durant meme of where Under the Shell's gonna land. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
I want to touch on two episodes specifically. I think that, anybody could sit here and do a sports podcast, but I think the two things I've been most proud of, I think the NIL episode, all in all, for what it was, for the timing, for who we were, for what was going on, is our best episode. Still a topic that nobody understands. You'll talk to people nowadays, oh, what's NIL? And I'll still tell them, like, go listen to this podcast, because we did a very good job breaking it down. We got a ton of interviews. We did it very quickly. And at the end of the day, as I said, it's just not a well-known topic, and it's very confusing. We did a very good job breaking it down at the time. It's changed tenfold since then at Maryland, around the country. But being able to do that in-depth research gave me a lot of confidence, I think, as a journalist. And same with the Len Bias and Jordan McNair episode.
Yeah. I think the NIL episode kind of paved the way for us to pull off the Len Bias, Jordan McNair one, which in my opinion, I think that's probably the best episode that we've ever done, with the scope of the people we talked to. I mean, we were talking to athletes on the team, journalists from the time, the people leading the investigation,
the president of the university. I mean, come on.
Like, we made sure that was a good episode. We made sure we crossed all boxes, checked every box.
It honestly took a year. It took us a year.
Yeah, it did. It came out a lot later than we originally hoped for. We were planning to do something like an episode like the NIL one every single year. And the Jordan McNair Len Bias one, we were like, all right, this is going to need a little bit more time. We took a plug in it, took a break, went back to it during the fall, finally got it out. It just took some time, took a little breaks here and there.
Yeah, but I think the fact that we're able to execute that, I do think the single best moment was we had just recorded the episode walking from McKeldin to the media bubble, or I guess the library at Night Hall, to then edit the episode. I guess it ended up being the media bubble, right? To edit that episode. You guys were working on clips. It was party atmosphere going on there. I mean,
we had McDonald's and champagne.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we're sitting there. I'm editing this episode. I don't think I went home till like 2. And then when I got back to the apartment, I remember that my computer has like about to die. Like I ran, I didn't save it. I got to get my computer down. I plugged it in. I edited the last hour of the episode. I was the only one left awake in the dorm. I finished at like 3 a.m. You guys are cutting clips. That's Under the Shell podcast, baby.
Man, it is so funny how we got a little bottle of champagne with some orange juice to celebrate that. And then, I mean, look, and talking about like the off the cuff episodes, maybe the episodes that don't follow the traditional structure that we use. We even do Thanksgiving episodes, and I think the Thanksgiving episodes, those are the ones that offer us to just kind of laugh, be a little silly, be a little giggly. And the show,
I think the Thanksgiving episode this year is like one of our best episodes. It's hilarious. Like
it is. It's very funny. I could not stop laughing when I was listening to it. There were some jokes that were cut too, that if Brendan ever wants to release the extended cut of the 2025 Under the Shell Thanksgiving episode, I think that would make even more laughs. And I would love to record people laughing to it and put a laugh track underneath it and see, how it's performing.
Mike, maybe you have a history and a future in, script writing for comedy television or something. But no, that episode was it was awesome. I think, dude, looking back at our list of episodes, I think the Tobin Anderson episode is just the biggest wild card. What's going on there? He's a good interview. I mean, I can't believe he got fired. But
I mean, yeah, we get the opportunity to talk to Tobin Anderson. Of course, we're going to take it. Tobin has an incredible story, not just about that game, but about him becoming a coach and just his career path as a whole. So really appreciate Tobin, and like you said, surprisingly fired from Iona. I don't think anybody that saw that news agreed with the move, and they would say that that was a little bit of a shocking departure from Iona.
I think we did this when we all got together for the Thanksgiving episode, the last episode we recorded in person, and probably who knows the next one. But just looking back at all the episodes, like I can look at each episode and be like, oh, I remember this moment. I remember this story told me. I remember this part of it. I remember, like, we were literally playing a game where we went to a random part of each episode, and then just like whoever could name who it was first got a point, and we pretty much got every single episode. Like, most of it was because I didn't know who the person was. I didn't recognize their voice, but I knew I could remember what we talked about.
Yeah.
Obviously edited and listened. I've listened to every episode, but
words that they're saying,
yeah,
keywords.
It's like, who did we talk to the transfer portal about from Illinois? It's like, oh, it's got to be whatever. It's got to be Trey Watts. Like it's been pretty crazy. All right, to continue the celebration of our 100th episode of Under the Shell, bringing on Andrew Chodes, our former editor back when we were with Testudo Times, just to talk some life updates and some Maryland sports. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us. And also, what have you been up to in the last 2 years since you no longer oversaw Under the Shell?
Kind of crazy how it's been 2 years since I was in college. So after college, I moved down to South Carolina to work on the high school sports scene. And a few months ago, I took a new job closer to Charlotte, doing something very similar. But yeah, I'm covering small town high school sports, which is it's fun. It definitely epitomizes what local journalism should be. But yeah, I'll be sure to make my way back to College Park soon enough.
Very well. What do you remember from the episode you hopped on 2 years ago now with Emmett as well on Undershell? What are your memories of that?
Yeah, I remember that Emmett kicked my ass, and we did a couple of games, and I just
trivia.
It was not good. I mean, just as most of our days went, Emmett was just beating me and everything. I was just like, oh my god, can I get something on this kid? But I remember I struggled, and then I remember we laughed a lot. So kind of just usual day of my life. I lose, Emmy laugh.
Yes, I don't remember exactly. I looked at this recently. I think that might have been the longest episode of Under the Shell ever. The 100th episode will be longer, but I think that was the longest episode up until this one.
Yeah, because I probably didn't stop talking.
that would seem to be likely. I know you used to have the Testudo Talk podcast. I was always a fan. I always tuned into that after games. You've been doing any sort of audio journalism anymore now?
We've tried to start things up, especially as we get closer to football season. But kind of resources are where we are. We've definitely tried to do a lot more video, interviews, and try to get those on social media. But audio is definitely where we're lacking. I'm not as good as technology and audio as you are. I'm very much more on the print side, but we're trying to adjust, and kind of getting on social media and working on video engagement and clicks has been our top priority at this new paper.
Absolutely. You obviously work for Testudo Times. You're working a paper covering Maryland athletics.
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference in your actual reporting that you had to do from covering a university to then covering local high school sports?
Oh my goodness. I would say for any student journalist at any school right now, and it doesn't matter where you are, D3, D2, D1, thoroughly enjoy what you do and make sure you can experience everything, because you're doing what you love, and there's no parameters or really any structure around it to an extent, right? Yeah, you work for your student paper, and it's great, but I mean, for free, you get to go to college athletics games and enjoy these games and talk to these players as a 19-year-old. Like, that's unbelievable. The difference with high school is, in local, a lot of it's kind of on your own, and we're formulating our own stories, and we're finding our own sources and doing stuff, which we did, but not on the same scale. And I think you really get to experience community in local journalism, and you get to meet people that are just so different from you. And when I was at College Park, I met a lot of people that were similar to me, different as well, but I think a lot of new experiences, and you have to work through a lot. So it's very different, and I think my advice is really enjoy it while you're doing it.
Do you have a favorite piece you've worked on from the high school side since you left?
From the high school side since I've left? Can I give you two?
Give me two.
All right. I know I'm going over time here, but you can.
No, you're good, dude. We're hanging out.
I wrote one story where I was at a football practice of a small town that has 1,100 people, and I was sitting at practice. I was talking to the coach, and I heard like a radio go off, and I go like, "Coach, like what is that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's for the fire station." I go, "What? We're at a football practice," and we kind of learned how two of the kids were also volunteer firefighters, and this was also during Hurricane Helene, which hit South Carolina really bad. And they were working with me, and I did a story on that. And number two, we had a kid that was signed from our small town that was signed to play for the Detroit Lions, and his dad had ALS, and kind of share his story. And so I'd say those two. And there are plenty of non-football ones down south. Contrary to popular belief, I've done every sport, literally. Name a sport, I've done it. Sports, gymnastics, dance. I'm like, ugh, what's going on? But yeah.
I'll go read your bocce coverage, but I'll give you a minute now before we close out. I know Kevin Willard was not your favorite person of all time when we were covering him at Maryland, and also he's now gone from Maryland. You got 60 seconds to discuss your thoughts on him now and how it all went down last year, because I know you've been really wanting to share these opinions.
No, it's nothing against him as a coach. I just think his personality is not well meant for a big market per se. He's very self-centered, very self-centered. He doesn't like criticism, and I don't think he treats people the right way. And I'm not trying to say that as, a sensitive guy in the media. I don't think he treats just the common folk, like whether it's a booster or a trainer, you can just there's no personality there. And I think he slowly got very frustrated and aggravated with everything. I think all the talking, all being in DC, and I think it slowly showed and eventually it burst. And I was not surprised. I was there covering the year before. Everything was amazing. And he just, it was a guy, things would not go well, and he would just cave and just be miserable. And he would refuse to accept anything that needs to be worked on. And I wish him luck. He grew 15 minutes from me. Fun fact. So I wish him luck in Villanova. But again, I think he will do much better at a school in the suburbs of Philadelphia, or in New Jersey, like Seton Hall, rather than University of Maryland. But I wish him luck.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on to tell us what you're up to, and also wish us well for our 100th episode spectacular.
Yeah, sorry. I wish the three of you the best of luck in your podcasting endeavor.
All right, my picks for the week. I like Brendan's, which is unfortunate because we're tied right now in the rankings, both sitting at 22 and 20, which is kind of wild, B. Give me Ohio State to win the Natty. I think they're going to repeat, but I think it'll be Indiana-Ohio State rematch in the championship, which would be awesome. Minnesota -2.5 versus New Mexico. Northwestern -10.5 versus Central Michigan. Tulane +17.5. Kiffin's gone. I don't know how I feel about Ole Miss. And then Oregon under 50.5 against James Madison. So I'm going to take the under in the totals there.
Sweet. Yeah, we're going to give 3 wins rather to the national champion. So it's pretty wide open field. I think the fact that 22 and 20 is the best record is pretty embarrassing. I'm going to take Georgia to be my national champion. I went down south and watched them play a game, and since then I've been pulling for them to win it all home. To win it, I think it'd be cool to just say I saw a team that won the national championship in person at their home stadium. So that's my pick to win the Natty. I'll take Texas A&M -3.5 against Miami. I don't think Miami's that good. I think Texas A&M is pretty good. I'll take them there. I'll take Ole Miss against Tulane. I'll take the over 56.5. And then in the Go Bowling Military Bowl, I'll take Pitt -5.5 against East Carolina. And then, relating to a story that Sam has been following very closely, lots going on at Michigan. I'm going to take Texas -4.5 against Michigan. What's going on with their coach, their team? Who knows? I'm sure there'll be a lot of people maybe transferring out. I think that's a pretty safe bet. There could be a lot of opt-outs of the bowl. They have no idea their coaches next year. So I'll take Texas -4.5. Mike, what do you got? Last picks of 2025.
The record is not calculated, so maybe a listener out there has been calculating them and knows I'm ahead. I do not know that right now. The record will be calculated over break. That being said, this is, like Brendan said, a huge opportunity for me to jump into the lead, make up some ground that was lost over the year. We're going Oregon National Championship winners. And then after that, let's get... you have something to say there, Sam? No, he doesn't. He doesn't have anything to say. After that, I'm going to go Alabama 1.5 point favorites over Oklahoma in the first round. I'm also going to take Texas A&M 3.5-point favorites over Miami. Louisville 8.5-point favorites in the Boca Raton Bowl over Louisville. Also Tulane, I like that pick, Sam. 17.5 dogs against Ole Miss. And then last, I'm going to take North Texas 3-point favorites over San Diego State in the New Mexico Bowl. Let's go. Have a great.
We don't have to get into all of it, but the way that bowl games have existed for the last 3 seasons and the way they're existing now is just absolutely ridiculous. As we continue celebrating our 100th episode ever of Under the Shell, we're bringing back on our 3rd ever guest and our first ever in-person guest, Josh Klubes. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.
For those of you who weren't listening back in 2022 or don't remember who Josh Klubes is, he used to be on the Terps Esports Fortnite team. He is now the founder and president of the Terps 2K team. So Josh, tell us what you've been up to in the esports space or the esports world in the past 3 years. Wow, can't believe it, since we talked to you.
So I've been playing for the University of Maryland Club 2K team. I've been playing as a solo, which means I'm playing as the entire team. For example, my team was the Thunder last year, and I actually won the college championship for that and secured free Chipotle with Brendan Weissel actually broadcasting that and watching live from this very apartment. I also have been participating in the 5-on-5 UPA college league. Last year, we actually made nationals. We finished 4th place. It was in Texas. I'm hoping to get back this year and win it all.
It's remarkable to think you're one of the best 2K players in the country and you're playing right here in College Park in Maryland. I want to take one step back, though, and just talk about your experience on Under the Shell 3 years ago. What do you remember from that awesome day where you hopped into the studio in McKeldin and we learned a little bit about esports?
I remember going into McKeldin with my next door neighbor, as well as his roommate, as well as Sam Jane, and having a lovely interview talking about my esports at the University of Maryland. I was on the Terps Esports Fortnite Premier team, which I'm no longer a part of, but I remember just enjoying my time on the podcast and hoping to come back sometime.
So what did it mean to you to get invited back for a second appearance on Under the Shell?
It was really special. You know, I thought that I actually was told that my episode had the most views at the time that it was published compared to any of the others. So
compared to the previous 2, yes.
The previous 2. So it makes sense that they would want me back. And I'm happy to share more about my new journey in the esports scene.
Yeah, so why'd you transition from Fortnite to playing 2K?
Last year, the University of Maryland esports program, specifically Sergio Barak, decided that Fortnite was not getting the player participation as well as the coverage that it deserved. And so he thought that it would be wise to cut the program as the university is facing budget cuts, and he decided that that was the best game to cut. I am hoping, though, in the future that they do bring back Fortnite as well as actually bring in the Terps 2K Club as part of an official program in the University of Maryland esports program.
How did you drum up interest for the 2K Club? You mentioned you have a team of 5s, but how did you get people to join your team? Obviously, you play in your apartment all the time, but how did you actually spread the word about the club you founded and then actually, have success on the national stage?
It was a lot of word of mouth. You know, the University of Maryland is a big school. There are a ton of people who play 2K, actually. I sent out flyers to different organizations. I posted flyers at the Armory as well as Epley at the basketball courts. You know, if you're interested in playing 2K, here's my phone number, as well as some other listservs. I believe the Black Student Union was one that one of the assistant directors at Reckwell set me up with, and I got a lot of support and players from them.
I want to take a step back and just talk about the world of esports. I know we talked about it 3 years ago now, but where's the landscape now? How do you, as someone who plays as a professional, someone who plays video games professionally, how do you feel the world of esports is progressing? I know there was a lot of momentum like 5 years ago. Is that still the case? What's been going on with a lot of the investments in that?
I think that 5 years ago we were at a weird time within esports because of COVID and so many people were inside. So I think there was kind of always going to be a spike in esports because of that. And I think that it's kind of tapered off since, but still at a point that's much higher than it was pre-COVID. But I just don't think that the level of interest will ever be as high as it was during COVID. But I think that, collegiate esports as a whole is continuing to grow. Just for example, the UPA college league that I'm participating in, it started last year and we've already seen, an increase in the number of teams that are interested and are playing. And I think that with different games coming along, there's always going to be more and more of an interest in esports, specifically at the collegiate level.
I want to talk about your personal career for a second. You're graduating Maryland this spring. Where do you see your esports career going? Would you like to play professionally? I know there's the 2K NBA league. Where do you see yourself going in that sense?
Yeah, I was planning on trying out for the 2K league, going through the draft process, the combine. However, within the last, I think it was 2 years ago, the league actually took a hiatus because of gambling issues that they were having with players betting on themselves and that sort of thing. So that is not looking like a plan for me at this very moment. Hopefully in the future, they'll bring it back. I am planning on going to law school. Depending on the law school that I do go to and, the coursework that it takes and if I have the time, I would like to try to play still maybe not in the 5-on-5 league because I don't know how many law school 2K like competitive players there are. But if that's the case, I will be definitely trying to play in the solo and repeat as a champion.
It's funny, a lot of people say that video games aren't very similar to the actual game it's representing. But here you just laid out an example where 2K had a gambling problem. We just saw the NBA have a gambling problem, and they're still carrying on. So maybe there is some hope that they'll bring that league back.
I definitely hope so.
We'll have to see.
Definitely hope so.
Well, I hope to see you playing professional 2K, and thank you so much for hopping on Under the Shelf for the second time and helping us celebrate our 100th episode.
Thank you for having me.
This week's Terrific Terp had a wild career at UMD that led to a successful pro career in the NFL. This week's Terrific Terp is Frank Wycheck. He grew up north of College Park, pretty north in fact, in Philadelphia, and attended Archbishop Ryan High School. And when he left there, he was the all-time leading rusher. Remember that detail. For the Terps, Wycheck took on the role of tight end. As a freshman, he led the ACC in receptions. He followed that pace his sophomore year by having the most receptions ever as a pass catcher through 2 years in the Atlantic Coast Conference. That helped his bid for a second-team All-ACC selection. The Terps only reached 6 wins in his freshman year in 1990, and the rest of his 2 seasons with the Terps were not as successful. The other thing that he struggled to do at Maryland was reach the end zone as a pass catcher. Despite 134 receptions, he only finished with 3 receiving touchdowns. In between his sophomore and junior year, not much went right for him. The Terps hired a new head coach, Mark Duffner, who focused more on the run-and-shoot offense, which cut down the need for a star tight end. In addition, Wycheck got mononucleosis and he pulled his groin. What a bummer of a summer for that guy. He played a smaller role because of this in his junior year in 1992 and was used at running back for the final 3 games of the season, just like he was in high school. Once again, a running back. As I mentioned, he was a star rusher in his high school days. And because of so many injuries in the backfield, he ended up finishing with 5 touchdowns on the ground, more somehow than he had receiving. He entered the NFL draft after 3 years with the Terps and was drafted by Washington nearby. They tried to use him as a fullback. I mean, he really got thrown around many different positions in his career. That wasn't very successful. He also failed the drug test when he was with them. So after only 1 year with that team, he went to the franchise he would then spend the next 11 years with, the Houston Oilers later, and now the Tennessee Titans. The middle of his career with the Titans was fantastic. He made the Pro Bowl in 1998, 99, and 2000. What he is really remembered for is a play in the AFC wildcard game from January 8th, 2000. If you've ever heard of the Music City Miracle, but you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look it up. Down by 1 point to the Bills with 16 seconds left, Wycheck successfully fielded a kickoff and then threw the ball back to Kevin Dyson, who ran 75 yards to give the Titans the win. The Titans made the Super Bowl. They went all the way that year, but they ended up losing. After that season, he played 4 more years for the Titans. All in all, he scored 28 touchdowns and had a 99-game streak where he caught at least one pass at a certain point during his career. He also threw for 2 touchdowns, and when he retired, he ranked 4th all-time in receptions among active tight ends. After he retired, he worked as a color commentator for the Titans. And 2 years ago, unfortunately on Wednesday, Wycheck died after a fall in his home. After his death, it was found that he suffered from CTE, and his legendary career is always remembered with the Maryland Terrapins and the Tennessee Titans, and that is why he is this week's Terrific Terp. Before we get out of here, one quick game we're going to play. I prepared. It's basically 2 truths and a lie, but it's 2 Terrific Terps and then not. So I'm going to give you 3 names, and you have to tell me which one of these 3 names was not a Terrific Terp, or a Terrific Turtle, if you will, if you want to be really serious with it, Mike. So first one. A. E.J. Henderson. B. Frank Cronin. C. Crystal Langhorne. Who from that list was not a Terrific Terp?
Say it again.
E.J. Henderson, Frank Cronin, Crystal Langhorne.
I do not think that Frank Cronin was a terrific terp. I've never heard that.
You'd be
name.
wrong.
What?
Frank Cronin, season 3, episode 12. He has the University of Maryland golf course record.
Okay.
At some point in time. He didn't actually play golf in college with pros. He graduated Maryland in 1939. Yeah, he was like a mile and a pole vaulter. He had the course record, and so it's first one. Okay. All right. Which one of these guys was not a Terrific Terp? DJ Moore, Robert Ward, or Bear Bryant? DJ Moore, Robert Ward, Bear Bryant.
DJ Moore was not a terrific.
DJ Moore was definitely not a Terrific
He was
Terp.
not. Very nicely done.
Absolutely not.
Lift
DJ
that
Moore
immediately.
never had a
Lift that out
chance.
immediately.
All right.
DJ Moore
All right.
never had a chance.
You got me with Frank Cronin.
All right. Game 3. The final one. DeQuell Jackson, George Campbell, and Kent Oslander.
DeQuell Jackson was not a
DeQuell Jackson. Wait, which one was one of those was the boxer, right? Or am I wrong?
Can't say.
Damn.
Say the name.
Clearly. Okay.
I'm going to say DeQuell Jackson was the fake.
DeQuell Jackson, George Campbell, Kent Oslander.
George Campbell was the wrestler with the brother, the Jew. That was one of my favorites, I think.
Nah, you're tripping. George Campbell's made up completely. I mean, it's somebody who played at Maryland. I don't remember. I just looked up. DeQuell Jackson was.
When was DeQuell Jackson?
Who is DeQuell Jackson?
DeQuell Jackson was a football player for Maryland.
He was not a Terrific Terp. Absolutely.
He was
not.
season 5, episode 2. He was he came to Maryland in 2002. Pretty successful career. And then Kent Oslander is the guy you remember. He played basketball, and then he is the guy who had the insane crash out playing Madden.
Oh my God, I remember.
That's him. If you don't know that clip, go look it up. He had one of the most insane crash outs playing Madden. It was wild, but yeah, he played at Maryland. He had a very odd career, but his Madden ties that was one of my favorite Terrific Terps. You got a favorite one, Sam? After my 2 Terrific Terps in a lie game.
Dude, Ken Oslander's crash out. I remember you talking about that. Was crazy. Brendan, who was the boxer that started the club with his brother? What was his name?
The last name was Alperstein, I believe.
Yes, he was. I think it was Benny, maybe that
yeah.
strikes in tone. He was my favorite. I thought that was an awesome story. Him and his brother, 2 Jewish guys, like started their own boxing ring. I thought that was really, really cool. That was my favorite Terrific Terp.
Yes, it was.
And that was one of the
Benny
first Terrific
Alperstein.
Terps we clipped. We put out like with video and stuff. And I thought that was really cool.
I remember at some point I clipped them all and just I'll post them every Friday. People forget that we used to do the social media.
People forget how much of a set of grinders we were, bro. We were in that thing, we were transcribing, we were getting it social media clips. Mike was having it sent to Jonas Evans, bro. Like that was wild.
Terrapin Sports
stuff.
Central refused to post the clips.
Yeah, Terrapin. if anybody wondered why we left Terrapin Sports Central after season 2, it was because they refused to post us on social media, and we all still hold a grudge about that to this day.
I mean, I was perfectly content staying there, but I don't mind like getting paid. So it's a, you know.
Well, yeah, that also helps.
Well, no. We're all about it for
lack
the
of exposure. Yeah, it was like a slap in the face of all the hard work we were doing.
That episode was unbelievable, and then they were like, "Nope, don't post it." And we're like, "All right."
I was like, all
Jonas Evans catching some crazy strays here at the end of this episode.
Honestly, we should have brought him on instead of some other people.
Jonas Evans,
yeah,
Kevin
literally.
McNulty was a big part of that too. For airing out all the laundry right now. McNulty was behind the effort of not having us.
Remember, we did a webpage article for TSC.
Yeah, it messed up the structure that they had already. They already had the way they wanted their social media set up, so no under the shell clips.
Yeah, Sam. We do have a web story on TSC. Mike was an editor there for.
I think it's probably been terminated. They've lost their website like 7 times.
Yeah, check the URL.
Nah, I think it's there, dude. It's on my LinkedIn. It better still be there. Come on.
Brendan was locked in for that article. I loved writing that with Brendan.
Dude, I cannot write, dude. Oh no, I can.
Bro, do you guys remember? There was one time we were in the media bubble. And we were running past our time, I think, and someone just started tapping on the glass as we
You mean the podcasting studio?
Yeah, the podcasting studio in McKeldin, bro. Crazy. I remember Brendan first putting us on to Riverside. I remember getting this message and being like, I don't know, man. Why are we switching it up? He's like, dude, trust. Like, Riverside, it's it. And then we switched, and now it's been our home ever since, bro.
Because I'd use it in the summer, and I was like, dude, the audio quality on Zoom is garbage, and the editing is so much easier. So
it was all just a ploy to make it his job easier, basically, is what he's saying.
Yeah, it was a ploy. I will say this: I've been very impressed with the way you two have progressed in your journalism careers, not just from a under the shell perspective. Obviously, Mike's coverage of. If you look back at his field hockey coverage, it's much worse than what he was doing football this year. But the way they've both grown as reporters and people, it's been very fun to watch. So they both got big things. They're obviously graduating on Friday. So, the podcast is going to live on, but definitely keep up with their coverage. Sam's been working hard on some stories this week, and so is Mike. So I'll give them their flowers. But congrats on graduating. You guys have finished your education at the University of Maryland. It's been fun to tag along here with you guys, and it's sad to say we're no longer going to be classmates, but we'll still be podcasters.
I appreciate that. I've told some people, I was very lucky to be placed into a freshman orientation that had 2 other great-minded journalists who, we can put in the work and all, but I would definitely say, working around Sam definitely inspired me and made me work harder. Working around Brendan definitely made me work harder and see a different, viewpoint and learn how to be a journalist. So I'm just very lucky to have met you guys that June day in 2022.
I still remember some of those conversations, honestly. Seriously.
I told you guys instantly I was a big Kanye guy.
Big LeBron guy, which you still somehow haven't given up that fad. But
remember we hooped at Epley?
Yeah.
I still remember the putback that I missed off the front of the rim. I made an awesome play to go grab the board and put it back up, and it just clanked right off the front of the rim.
This is why you're behind a microphone and you're not playing at Xfinity Center on Saturday, right?
Yeah. Dude, some great classic memories. I remember Michael recording a podcast and showing his wrist to us, and it was so swollen.
Oh, yeah.
And then he...
honestly... Some of the best chats happen between me and Mike before Sam hops on the call.
Yeah, I'm always late.
I remember freshman year, Mike and I had freshman year, we had Johnson 200 together. We would walk to class, it was Wednesday morning or whatever, and be like, okay, this is the take I'm going to give on the podcast today. I was like, save it. This is too good.
Mike is the king of that. He'll come up to me in the room. He's like, Sam, bro, I got this take I want to put on the pod. I'm like, and then he goes into this eloquent take. Yeah. I'm like, and then he gives it on the pod. It's like, it's half as good as what he was saying an hour ago. But no, in all seriousness, to echo what those two have said, I mean, to be able to like just sit down and chat every night, every like weeknight with you two, like about Maryland sports, and to interview the as cool of people as we've done. Like I picked up on interviewing skills literally from just listening to our pod and watching you guys conduct interviews. But it's also just like such a bright, like this is going to sound so corny, but it's true. Like it's such a bright spot of my week, like to be able to record Under the Shell. Like I look forward to these recordings, like not many things could get me pumped up at 11:30 on a Wednesday, but Under the Shell is definitely one of them. I've loved every second of it, like the growth that we've had. I mean, we literally started from nothing, and like it's hard to, we're not like a viral podcast or anything, but it's hard to build up like an audience. And I mean, we have 500 subscribers on YouTube. We get constant
I don't know about that many.
No, not 500, not subscribers. We get like, we average like around
the Klubes been doing
500
well.
Yeah, 500 listens, something like that. Like it's really been awesome to watch us build and to watch you guys grow as reporters and learn from you. You want to surround yourself with people who are hard workers and like-minded, and I couldn't have picked two better people to be my podcast co-hosts. So I'll always have Under the Shell in my Twitter bio, and that will never change. So
We've got an absolutely great group of three.
I mean, yeah, and also we've been very lucky to have some help from
shout out
Eddie and Audrey.
Eddie and Audrey. And shout out our great
Eddie, Audrey, Jonas Evan, Andrew Chodes, Evan Siegel, Mark Hyman.
No. Shout out Emmett, shout out Andrew, shout out Ahmed. Been great.
Obviously Ahmed. I mean, Ahmed, he's been a pleasure to work for. Love
what a goat.
Yeah.
Skipping over one boss there, but that's okay. We can wrap up Under the Shell 100th episode. Guys, awesome stuff. We're talking like it's over. It's not.
We got at least one more semester. At least one more. This could be our farewell tour.
We might have 1,000 more semesters, dude.
Chill, Michael.
Johnny Holliday said he'd come on the episode 1,000. So we got 900. We got 899 until you hear Johnny again.
By the way, how about that new intro today? How about that new
Oh my god. Still Mike House, the best in America. I totally forgot about that, and now I have to edit that still, but
best in America, best at Maryland. We appreciate you all for listening. Have a great rest of your evening. Enjoy the holidays. Listen to Under the Shell, and we'll be back in a little bit.
You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.